based in Taylorsville with Courtney Gamoa, who's the watershed coordinator, among other things, up in Almanor.
Great.
Correct.
Brandon Phillip, Forest Service Company.
Jay Francis, Forest Manager, Collins Pine, and Chester.
Ryan Hilmer, Forest River Invading Associate. Brian Tompkins, Forest Level Full Service Plymouth National Forest.
And I'm still John Sheehan, unattached.
Retired, a little bit of everything.
Randy Wilson, Plymouth County.
And Leah Wilson, the coordinator for this group. And Paul.
Paul knows Deer Creek GIS.
So we're still waiting for some. Here comes Mike, and we're waiting for Michael Jackson and for Bowman, but we're going to get going so everybody else can get out of here on time. And so Randy's going to start us off. Sign in. And there's coffee and food and everything by giving us an update of what the Regional Water Management Group's been up to.
I didn't know I was going to have to do this, so I didn't prepare any big speech or notes. I can say on the June 15th meeting, they vetted the 80 or so projects that were submitted in this process, and really only kicked out those that were proposed by an entity that didn't sign the MOU. So, you know, there's a lot of projects that got through them. Now we're into the next phase. Sort of my brief summary of things. I actually didn't attend the meeting because I had a hunt fever of 101, but I did watch it on the system, and it did work.
The system or the process?
Through the
video.
computer.
Right.
And actually noticed that after lunch, it wasn't unmuted and was able to text them, and they got unmuted, so it recorded. Everybody was really talking a lot, so that's an easy thing to do.
So the audio was good?
Hi, Burkhard.
Audio was, if I had amplified my computer, would have been better. I had to scramble. I first tried to do it on this one. It didn't work. You need an Apple, or I mean an IBM system. It doesn't work with, well, it doesn't work with Safari.
Oh.
It does work with Google Chrome, which is, I happen to have that on my IBM or my Windows-based computer. And if I'd had time, I would have gone out with a speaker system on the computer, and you could hear it pretty well then. So I had to pay attention.
So if nobody has any questions on that, we'll move right into Paul, and he's going to walk us around these maps. These are our draft maps for the plan.
Yeah, pretty similar to what we had last time, a few updates. The WUI is an updated WUI. It's a little bit larger than what was on there before. It only has one.
Which map is that? Can you?
It's on quite a few of them. It's on flame length, your fire threat, and your fire hazard severity maps.
Okay.
And then we added the different DWR Bulletin 118 basins and the Forest Service priority watersheds. Those are all on this precipitation map,
Okay.
which came from National Weather Service PRISM data. It's normal annual precipitation, so it doesn't account for drought. In a normal year, that's about what we see average per year in inches. Flame length is based on a fire behavior modeling program called FlamMap, which looks at the entire landscape. It looks at basically slope, aspect, and weather conditions, and it generates what types of flame lengths you'd see, and it's kind of a good indicator of fire behavior. Longer flame lengths are going to have more extreme fires. Shorter flame lengths are going to be.
Paul, does that look at fuel loading as well?
Yes, yeah. It uses land fire data, which captures fuel as well, and you have an option, a couple of different fuel models. This was based on that, the 120 level fuel model rather than 40. And it gave us a little bit finer detail from what we thought was a little bit more accurate. On the other fuel model, it was a lot more longer makes a lot more money. Kind of overblown.
So that's conservative.
It's a little bit more, yeah, conservative.
So just briefly, I'm so far away, what do the colors mean on that?
Well, basically, the reds are longer flame lengths. So, the reds, you're looking at like 16 to 20 foot flame lengths.
So to get in the crowns then.
Right, yeah, exactly. And then the greens it starts 0 to 4 feet. And each of these maps, too, if we have a chance later to look at them, they all have notes on them talking about where the data came from and what it is and how it should be used and not used, especially the fire hazard severity. I know everybody was looking at that, and obviously there's no federal ground on that map, and that's data that comes from CAL FIRE, from FRAC. And as far as I know, I don't know if you know anymore, but Forest Service doesn't have a similar ranking for their lands. I don't know. I haven't been able to come across it anyway.
So
So,
we're just talking about that. I'm not sure.
We certainly had such a map in the 89 QLG, 99 QLG EIS, which shows, for example, that the canyon, if you looked at it, Crossley would burst into fire immediately,
And we
among other
usually
things.
use that fire regime condition class for
That's what
that.
I'm saying.
Yeah, and then let's use that FRCC rating.
So you have something that we can incorporate?
I don't know if it's a one-to-one crosswalk with
Yeah,
what's a
it's
straight
probably-
there's probably some different nuances. but
which
I
is,
know.
I mean, because of the gaps in that, now that's what kind of prompted trying to come up with something else to look at the threat, flame length, and then fire threat, which is mostly around the more populated areas. That's also FRAP data from CAL FIRE. These are the hazardous fuel reduction projects. You'll have to get closer to see the different colors because there's a lot of small projects, but we've got CAL FIRE, NRCS, Plymouth Fire Safe Council, and then Forest Service projects in their various stages. So we've got the ones that are just in NEPA planning, and then ones that are being laid out, and then there's the stage 3, which are the accomplished projects. And then we also have all the projects that were in the QLG FEIS all 2 are also all displayed on here as well.
As undone,
Yeah, they're, I didn't have information on whether they were completed or not, so they're just displayed as is, without any reference to whether they're completed or not.
Okay, and then
Yes, no, we saw that last night.
these are the
but
elevation
same
ones showing the difference in the snow zone between 5,000 feet and 6,000 feet. And then that one's, what's that, one? The fire
thing.
threat?
Yeah, it's fire threat.
How's that different from flame length?
Well, this is also from FRAP, from CAL FIRE. So it's more of a statewide data set. It's not going to be as detailed as like the flame map. But fire threat's going to mainly focus on your WUI areas and give you a higher threat where there is stuff that can be threatened. as
Like
opposed
people.
to- Exactly, people, structure.
Okay, so this is more, okay.
so it's kind of it uses a different starting point.
Yeah, if you look at the nose, so basically I can just read what's right on here. It can be used to estimate the potential for impacts on various assets and values susceptible to fire, as opposed to fire hazard, which is where are you going to have fire? This is where is fire going to damage more things.
So this is kind of our suite. It's obviously missing the Forest Service data. Ryan. Is there a way I can follow up with somebody and make sure that we get that on there and then we're kind of done with that?
So I can look at the data. I know what he's talking about, and I can probably find that
Yeah.
for our service, or I can talk to
Well, after the
Ralph.
last meeting, we tied you in with Ralph
Yeah, I
Martinez,
can
right,
contact
for the
you.
LiDAR data that you wanted, and
Yeah.
the forest layers, the 41 photos, all of that.
Which we got.
Okay, great, so he was able to deliver all that.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what we could fit on our 2 terabyte drive didn't
Okay. Okay.
quite get on there, but most of what we wanted. And then
Yeah,
this is a land. It's not an ownership map per se. It's more of a land manager's map because certain groups managing pieces of land for other groups, and so that's kind of what this displays here. And then fire history back to 75.
So the reason those two maps will be important is when we go through our projects, want to draw them on there so that they can put the pins on and go ahead and finish up that map on the ownership map.
Now for the missing FRCC, or we have two layers for this map where you're missing the Forest Service data. One, you could use the FRCC, which is the fire regime condition class data. You could also use the FRID, which is the fire regime interval departure data, which I think includes some FRCC if you get in that attribute table. In both of those, that data should all be available on the web through the clearinghouse.
Oh yeah, no, I have that
Okay.
data. I didn't want to make too many maps. I mean,
Fair enough, yeah.
I would probably want to display those each separately and on a separate map from that fire.
Yeah, it makes sense because I don't think it's a one-to-one
It's not the same
crosswalk.
thing.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, yeah. it's much
So
more
we're looking at
coarser.
2 more maps and then we're probably done. If you have any other suggestions, let Paul know. And
Paul, you didn't, I noticed also there's no real Lasson County data on there. Like the WUI for Lasson County is not on there.
Yeah, that's from the Plymouth Fire Safe. That's all.
And that's all,
And Sierra County as well.
there's all there.
It's all available.
It's all available.
okay, so you're going to add the Forest Service, Lassen County, and Sierra County. Fire Safe. And Butte too,
What
right?
about the Butte Fire Safe Council?
Yeah,
Did
and
we get
that's
any of
inside
When I
our map.
contacted them, they didn't have any GIS data for me.
So,
I'll talk to the Lasson County folks. and see if
Yeah, I don't have a contact. You have a contact.
Yeah,
If you give me
I'll-
that, would be fine. I don't. Butte and Loomis, I have contacts for, but I don't see it.
But that's that.
Okay,
And
so,
Shasta too.
but not just for this map,
Yeah, well, there's some Shasta.
a little bit.
And
Okay.
then Vicky did it to him as
Maybe
well.
Vicky
but-
Doolin, because she's done the IRW and review, maybe she has access to see.
Well, we can follow up with Butte because we have to anyway. So if you'll get Lassen and
Well, Butte Fire Safe Council doesn't have anything for GIS data. I've already talked to them. They refer me to CAL FIRE, which has their own movie layer.
so you could use the
I
cap.
could use a CAL FIRE movie layer, yeah, which is different than what we have here for the Plumas.
No, that's fine. We want the tightest thing we can get.
Yeah, we don't really care what CAL FIRE thinks about the Plymouth WUI.
Right.
We establish it according to federal law. We're cool. We don't need to.
No. I'm talking about where we got gaps. So Butte, if you would get the CAL FIRE data,
Yeah.
that'll be good enough for now until we can tighten it up, unless somebody else can figure something else out. But Paul's the contact for that. Okay, so if that's everybody on the maps, we'll move on to the next. Resource management strategies, we've been through this so many times. The regional.
I hate to say it, but none of us have really looked at these maps in any depth. It might be good to take a break at some point, and look at them, and then maybe come back.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, yeah, a lot of notation on there as far as.
Yeah, so this is our chance to get some things into Paul so we can get that done for the plan. Okay, so the Regional Water Management Group did assign some of these other resource management strategies to everyone, or some groups. So the 2 things they assigned to all the groups was land use planning and management and other strategies, which we kind of already have covered it. And so here's our resource management, RMS. We already had forest management, ecosystem management, watershed management, sediment management. Now we've got land use planning. We've got outreach and engagement, economic incentives. And we already had our own strategies, so I feel like we're done as far as what the Regional Water Management Group wanted. So unless anybody has any questions on that, but as we go through the whole planning process, this is the kind of work that will come up about for us in the final plan.
So, do they expect the regional group to critique these subgroup strategies and make modifications in them? Are they Have they reviewed them enough to just accept them as is?
Well, one of the steps that we haven't gone through that the other work groups are going through is seeing what the state water plan says about these strategies and then seeing if they really fit our area. Because forest management is such a new strategy in the California water plan, they said a bunch of what I think are pretty stupid things about it. Okay, they really did. And so I deferred to later concentrating on that after we got done with the projects, because we're not gonna like what they have to say and we're probably gonna have a lot to say. But the regional management group is gonna take what the work groups say as far as how they look at these strategies. And yeah, they might change things. Hi, Michael. They might change things, and but really they're relying on the work groups to say things that respond to what the California water plan said or adjoining IRWM plan said. And most everybody's pretty silent on forest management or just dealt with water quality and some dumb things that really they didn't characterize correctly, I don't think. So I defer till September. We'll dig into it later, but we haven't done it. Because we got a bigger job than just cutting and pasting others. Okay, so any questions on that? Okay, so we're supposed to, this is what I was just talking about, we have to review what the California water plan said about our strategies and IRWMs. And I asked that we defer our work till September, October, because it's just too much going on right now. And we're gonna have more to say than what we were saying, Michael, is the California water plan said some pretty kind of silly things about forest management because they hadn't dug into it very much. And the adjoining IRWMs didn't say much either. So we're going to be kind of writing our own chapter on the California water plan on forests, I think. So that's later. That's in September or October, unless you guys want to do it early. So, so now we're into the project development. As you know, we got about 80 projects overall, and our work group put in about 13. And what we're supposed to do today is kind of go through the ones that where people are here to talk about them and ask if people want to go into the step 2 process and draw the project area on the maps there. And so that's what we're going to do here for the probably next 20 minutes or so. And here's the process. We have our next deadline for the step 2 is August 3rd. And so that's when, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the step 2, it's about a 10-page application. And anyone that was approved for step 1 is eligible to participate in step 2. And then on the 21st of August, we're gonna have an integration workshop where all the work groups who are going into step 2 can bring their projects, and it's going to be out of the fairgrounds, and there'll be a morning session where people look at each other's projects and see if there's any ways that we can bundle things together to make a stronger inter-work group kind of project. And I have some ideas for you at the end under the what we call the watershed WUI, where we might be really tied to municipal and ag and some other places. And so then the regional water management group goes through some kind of prioritization process, which is undefined at this point. And then we have the last prioritization process for the projects, and they go into the plan pretty much at that point, is my understanding.
Before we go on, with regards to prioritization, right now it's looking like each kind of group will have their own prioritization. So municipal, forest, meadows, all of them will be separate. So there's not a competition from one to the other in that regard, the prioritization within. And sort of what came out of the Meadows and the Floodplains work group last Friday as they worked through the projects is they could see how some of them bled over to other work group type projects. So there might be another category that will come out, and that's just kind of in the incubation stage. And after your meeting today, you might find that too. And then the other one is the Native American projects are all kind of in their own category too. But what we found,
So there's a fifth kind of committee structure
kind of structure that came about by basically default in the process, and it's really kind of cool. So, but what I saw was some of those Meadows projects kind of started to reach out and connect with other projects that other work groups have submitted, and we'll be looking at that more as we go along. Again, the idea is to put everything in categories so that you're not competing against the 15 or 20 million dollars, which are municipal projects that popped up. And I know Ryan was at that meeting. And am I characterizing that?
Yeah, so I mean, that's what it seems like. I'm going to characterize them by groups, but like I said, there were a lot of projects that seemed like we could crosswalk between groups.
So there might be even another category for those that do that. Again, that's just in the incubation stage.
Okay, so. Okay. So that was the timetable. And so what we're kind of doing today is we're looking at the projects that came through our work group, recognizing there's other projects in the other work groups that we might become interested in later. And we're still accepting comments on the baseline technical study. It's on the website. You can go in into documents and add things if you think they should be added. And you send it to Uma, and then she makes sure it gets on the documents website. And then at a later date in October, that's when we get into what the California Water Plan said about forests. And we grind through that and make sure it really fits our area. But that's later in the fall. So any questions about the timetable of what we're doing right now? Okay, so this is pretty hard to see. How do we
This
get
is
this?
impossible. We gotta put it on slideshow first. The icon slideshow.
Somebody knows how to use the program.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you, Courtney. So we went through this same process, our last like planning.
Still got it.
Oh, that's way better. Thanks, Courtney. Our
Still-
last planning undertaking for right now was to go through the objectives in the plan and tie our strategies to the objectives. Okay, so we asked the chairs to take a crack at this, and I thought you would have a better copy in your packets to look at.
Well, how far into it?
Well, that's what we're trying to find out.
We put it together.
Probably after. I don't see
I think
it.
it's at the end of the packet.
Okay. Yeah, okay, here it is, the last few pages of the packet. If that's easier to read, we were hoping to get it up on the screen so you could see it better, but that didn't work. So you're back to being stuck looking at your packets. And it's the last four pages in your packet, and has on the top, it has our Uplands and work group issues, which we, developed a long time ago. And then down the left side is the objectives, and that's the chart that we're gonna finish up today. And so Mike, since you and John helped me do this, what do you guys wanna help everybody walk through it?
It's been so long ago, and this looks so, I don't think I want to tackle this.
Well, the only thing I'd bring to the table on it is it's important to point out the places where things are missing. X's, not so much.
Didn't we go through that? So
Yeah, we did go through that, but not everybody here has gone through this. So, like in the first one, restoring functions, we didn't feel that was a biomass infrastructure issue per se, or a wood processing facility upgrade issue, or a water for forest management issue. Now, we could be wrong in all those assumptions, but that's the assumptions that Mike and Leah came up with, and they vary from item to item.
So how do you guys wanna go through this? Should we just go down it, each one, and we add X's or take X's away, or is that the fastest way to do this?
There's 3 pages.
Okay, hydrologic functions. We had everything marked except Biomass, wood processing, and water for forests, fire and management. How's everybody with that?
And fire liability.
For my liability.
Yeah, should there be an X in the last column or not? No?
Oh, right, you're right.
Just leave it?
No, he was talking about fire liability didn't get X either
Oh,
in this initial iteration.
yeah, so should that be X? No, okay. Second one, we kinda X'd everything except water for fire and forest management. We could add X there if we want.
Thinking being that reducing catastrophic wildfires in and of itself does not allow any brand new water for fire and forest management. I mean, that could be too narrow. It could be a stupid thing to say, but that's what this says. So if people think differently, we can exit.
Well, I guess it depends, what methods are you using to reduce potential for catastrophic wildfire? I mean, I'm presuming that's thinning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This, what I understood water for fire and forest management was this thing like tanks and cisterns and water trucks and, you know, the infrastructure, temporary ponds, all that sort of thing. For actually physically fighting fire or watering trees or doing something in that regard with infrastructure. Not
just
thinning.
the natural.
Right,
ability.
not natural. This is like you're building something to do it. So leave it blank or?
I thought this was tied to, I felt like at the last meeting we talked about the water holes issue and running out of water for forest operations. So, I mean, you could check it or not check it. The sun's gonna come up either way
Yeah, yeah,
next
so,
day, but, you know, if you are talking about thinning, maybe it is worth checking it just because we're gonna need those water holes if we wanna reduce the potential for catastrophic wildfires.
Yeah, and especially with drought, we're going to have to be getting water out of tanks instead of in stream. Basically by governor's order. This is the second year in a row where we've had the emergency regulations for drafting. So that investment opportunity, I think, is going to be more and more important in the future. So that we can
Okay,
draft year round basically out of those water holes.
okay, so exit. Okay, that's good. The next one is all X'd all the way across unless you want to remove anything. That's balance the needs of forest health, habitat preservation, fire prevention, economic activity. Build communication is another one that was X'd all the way across. Any comments, John, or anybody? Leave it?
It's a little asterisk says, except for the ones we don't like.
Yes.
I think I've mentioned this in the last meeting, the objectives. I mean, we understand they're correct, but somebody who sees the IM as a water program, except for the word hydraulic function, there's nothing in there that indicates that this connects to water in any fashion.
I know.
Which I think is part of the problem that you're going to run into later in the year. I think this is why the state of California doesn't quite get it in terms of the relationship between forest and water. It's because this is a fine set of objectives, but I think water people would look at it and say, well, we sure hope the Forest Service and the United States Department of Agriculture get it together to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're gonna have to circle back to do that with those resource management strategies we have to take up in the fall. That's what we're gonna have to tie all this together, because it's all piecemealed out right now.
Right.
And that's why the other groups got into it, but we're gonna have too much work to do, because the state didn't get it right. You're absolutely right. And the California Water Fund on for us, so. So, okay, I'll note that. Okay, work with Department of Water Resources on the state water project and the Upper Feather River to increase water supply, recreation, and environmental benefits to the region. And our group, we X'd 2 of them, so what do you have to say about that, Michael? We X'd infiltration and inflow changes. We X'd water for fire and forest management. Should we have X'd all the rest of it?
I mean, this is the only thing we want to work with DWR on, or we think they'll be able to help us on.
Everybody has to remember that we still have the 4 million coming from DWR and the state water contractors out of the Monterey settlement for the state water project lawsuit, so
Wait, we still have that coming?
yes,
Yeah, they got 4
You know
million.
what,
all the
Melanie?
other lawsuits have to be settled, but then we get the other 4 million.
So, what's the expectation? Do you have any?
Well, we've been waiting about a decade.
The expectation is that the lawsuits will be over within the next 18 months.
So at that point, we get $4 million.
Are those the ones down in Kern County?
For what?
Kern Water Bank?
Or, well, last,
Do what?
well, we're gonna say it's to do to implement this plan, right? And so, and projects in this plan,
Well, the first 4 million got cut was in the Plumas Watershed Forum.
right?
So DWR had a big say in how that money was allocated.
Yeah, I mean,
There was 2 parts to it, and then I have
there was
an audit of that.
an A section and a B section. DWR and some of the
Contractors?
some of the contractors had influence in the A section. The B section was for Plumas County to use any way they wanted. You can dispute whether or not we used it correctly, but the same arrangement will be in the 4 million. It'll come in $1 million a year from the time the lawsuits are finally settled. The lawsuits are going to actually settle based on the fact that time has passed them by.
Is this the famous latches?
No, but it's that the current fan part of the thing that was holding it up has devolved into a different set of lawsuits, but only in Kern County, between the people running the current fan
And everybody else.
and everybody else in the county whose water they are sucking into the fan as they begin to export water. And so there's another set of lawsuits, but it will not hold up this one. And the longest I could see it being held up is 18 months. The shortest is about a year.
And those are not related to the county's lawsuit over Oregon.
They are not.
And that one
is
is in the appellate court, been
It's
there
at
for a
the
long time.
appellate court, and the appellate court is attempting to move stuff that's, I mean, the appellate court is like a deli, you file your lawsuit and take a number. The line is shorter now, but we're not at the front of it.
So this Plumas Watershed Forum money got used for fire safe activities and also to fund some of Wkrgrp's research on infiltration.
A lot of let's go work. Up under there. So, those are the big categories. That's why municipals feel like it's their turn. But back to this, I mean, that because of the lawsuit and the chance that that money's gonna show up in 18 months, I was thinking we should X everything across here.
Yeah, I would, we're gonna have to do some more work, like we talked about earlier, connecting up all of this fire stuff that's on this list is an advantage if you understand it.
Right.
But it's terrible disadvantage if you don't. Because what it looks like is you're supplanting water in order to run chainsaws. I mean, is the way it would be seen in the water business. So,
Really?
what?
Really? That's okay.
Really?
Yeah, it is.
No, that's why I said we needed
Lack of
to do a
understanding
lot
of
of
the
work on it.
association.
It's bad. The way it's written is
So
bad. It's not
the way it's written, it's and please, I may be overstating this as I often do, but the way it's written at first blush to a water person is that it's an attempt to pile on by an industry and on an issue that is important, but shouldn't be funded by these guys, is their view. So what the concept that seems to work when you talk to them is that the mention of catastrophic wildfire is the reason that we should be reducing catastrophic wildfire. And this doesn't say, it uses reduce, but it doesn't say why. And the reason we're trying to reduce catastrophic wildfire is not to supplant our fire budget, but it's to improve watershed conditions that supply water to the state water project. And the only time we really have, I guess basically they don't understand that this is a tool and not an end in itself. And we need to better define the end that helps their water problems. And then we can explain why thinning and activity is its tool. Controlled burns are a tool. They're not, they're appropriate ends in themselves, but not in terms of water. If there was a way to avoid using that tool for water purposes, we probably would, but there isn't. And they don't get it.
Okay.
Because we're not, when we send people who talk about this from Mark Rentz, who is extremely knowledgeable about this and who appears in every Sacramento hearing, but he speaks so much forestry that when he tries to attach it to the water, it looks like
just an add-on,
just an add-on.
self-serving add-on.
Right. Because there's a source of money. If there is not, there's way too much forestry talk for the water people to understand.
Yeah, and that's why that meeting on the 20th in front of the California Water Commission, we have to have our language straight for that.
We do. 20th of when?
Of August. And the lineup they have is California Forestry Association. They have the usual suspects. I don't even think they dragged in the regional forester for this one. And so we're going to try and work on that. And then Bales will be presenting from UC Merced, right, Michael? And we tried to get Freeman's presentation in there and haven't had any success.
In that regard, who is we?
Well, we is me talking to some people like Tim Shroshane and some of those people that have been going. And Plumas County sent a letter to the Water Commission objecting to the fact that They were narrowly construing water storage, but we hasn't been anything because I didn't know if we had a regional project to actually propose.
Do we have a regional project?
Well, we're getting to that. One was put on the table.
Then thank whoever did that.
So if we
So then
get,
we need to flesh that project out
right, if we get to a
before
regional.
August the 20th.
Right, well, and it's, the step 2 is due August 3rd, so we have to work this whole next month to do the linkages between water and forest, to present it in a way they understand it, and to have a proposal that's there enough that if they say, okay, well, what does this really look like, we could say something. But back to this, since
Yeah, do we
we
have to?
have money
Act like
coming
this.
from the state water contractors and DWR in 18 months, don't we want to X all
X it
those
all.
lines
Right.
on the bottom? Yes?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah, I mean, it won't hurt us any. Okay, so the next one is municipal services. We want municipal services to be interested in some of our issues, and
Before you go on, just to give you an idea and that work with, is that the section you're talking about?
work with Department of Water Resources, yeah.
So, the last word in that is the wrong word.
State water project facility.
Recreational and environmental benefits to the region.
And the state.
Well, I mean, when you look at the region, they're gonna see that as self-serving and an attempt to get water for a specific part of California. There is no emphasis in there that it's for California.
And,
This is
okay.
the California State Water Project watershed.
Okay, a good point.
The control of state water project, they don't want us in control.
For our benefit.
Right.
They want.
For the benefit of the I mean, we're so loose with the language.
Okay, right, well, all right, so I'm gonna check back with you, try and get back with them and see if we can fix that.
So it should it say state and region or just dump region?
Just dump.
Don't region, I mean,
Dump it all.
this is for the people of California, yeah? I mean, we're some of them, and I don't wanna go up in smoke here, but, the idea is, we gotta get rid of all these water pumps, or there's never gonna be flows in stream for the benefit of the people of California's resources.
Okay,
So put SWP instead of region.
well, no, it'd be bigger than that, like the Delta is part of California. They don't get to ship it all to San Diego.
Well, yeah, but San Diego is very interested in the part that is shipped to them.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
And at $1,600 an acre foot, which is what they're paying in San Diego this year. You know, a few thousand acre feet, or you're beginning to talk about money.
Yes. Yes, we are. Okay. Right, so what about on the municipal service providers? Participate in regional water management. Well, we said that it really, where we were asking for their help especially is to help with the fire liability and water for fire and forest management. Does that seem right? Anybody? Good enough?
Yeah.
The next one is the federal energy regulatory process.
Our friends, FERC.
Yeah, that's mainly in the canyon, the North Fork Canyon, and they're all preoccupied about in-stream flows. They spend I spent 20 years in that process, and they spend 90% of their time talking about frogs, fish, and in-stream flows and water quality. So that's why we checked infiltration and inflows, and then just the role of science, all the science fights about.
And economic incentives. In that other one we checked there, which is the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. Is to make sure that FERC gets involved in economic incentives, which they've never been in their lives.
Right.
Because they didn't think it was their role and continue to stovepipe it.
And because they're not a government agency, they're just a fund for the hydropower industry.
Like a California PUC.
Well, they stick within their boundary, but of course, as Gary Freeman has almost said, the reason we might be missing 400,000 acre feet in this watershed has to do with the forests, but he has not, he only said that in Chester, he's never said it
But because his bosses won't let him say it.
right. But anyway, okay, so is that good enough for that one? Sorry, this is so painful, you guys. Okay, the next one is protect, restore, enhance the quality of surface and groundwater resource for the beneficial uses.
No, we forgot about the municipals.
Well, we kind of said,
Did we check anything?
Yeah.
we did two of them. We did water for fire, and we did fire liability and water for fire and forest. Did you want anything else?
But I
in there?
can't find
I
any
don't
of
see
them.
them.
It's not on.
They're not on the
Nothing's checked.
form we've got.
It's good
blank.
because of the break.
What I have has it, they're checked.
Let's check. You know what? You're looking at the end of the one above it. Okay, go down one. Municipal.
Or you're up here, I was looking at the
Yeah,
Fire,
I'm-
liability,
yeah.
water, fire,
Yeah.
Okay, so are we okay on municipal being fire liability and water for
Well,
forest?
yeah, that's the next page.
Yeah, that's the next page. That's why it's all screwed up.
So why don't we say the same thing under address economic challenges of municipal service providers? The same thing that we set up above, that is for fire liability purposes and water and for fire and forest management. Check those same boxes, is what I'm proposing, rather than no boxes.
Well, it is really, that's what we did. As you can look up on the screen, you're looking at the top end of the row before it. You're still looking at the upper end of the state water project. That's why it doesn't look checked on your paper.
But on the screen, even Leah, there's nothing there.
It's nothing checked either.
There's nothing, the one that starts with address economic challenges has no X's on the screen.
Address
There's one before, it's encourage municipal service providers to participate.
Right here.
Two before.
And then that's the one with the box.
Okay. Oh, address challenges.
I
Oh, I
suggest we
see.
say the same
Okay.
things as we said above.
Okay, all right, you're right.
So it'd be fire
Liability, you're right. Okay.
Why I hate working with Sheehan's often, right?
Off and along as well.
Okay, so this one's looking, all right.
Doesn't mean they're maladaptive.
Okay, all right, well, I finally got it. Okay, you guys. Okay, now to the next ones. Protect, restore, enhance quality of surface and groundwater resources, blah, 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 for all beneficial use consistent with the basin plan. So the only things we left out of that one were basically the infrastructure ones, the biomass and the wood processing, and then the infrastructure for wildfire and forest management.
Why wouldn't you include infiltration and inflow changes?
That's a good question. Yeah, we should. I think we should. I think I made a mistake. Okay, so yeah, let's include that one. I'm sorry, yeah, it should be in there.
If biomass is a tool, that's a result
Right,
from an appropriate biomass policy.
right. Okay, so adding the X on infiltration and inflow, is the rest of it look okay? Okay, address the water resource wastewater needs of disadvantaged communities and Native Americans. So again, we put adaptive management, we put, the science part, we put infiltration and inflow, and we put water for fire and forest management under that. think the tribal people would say loss of critical habitats and all that sort of things, but we were afraid to put words in everybody's mouth until they filled out their own table. I think that's probably why we were more hesitant. So how does that look to you guys?
Well, I'd sure like to see what they had to say, but lacking what they said, it ought to be made modifications to this.
Yeah, Trina just emailed me. She's stuck in Toronto. She was supposed to be here, stuck in the airport. So anyway, I was hoping to get it right from her, but
She's been
she's
in
not.
Ireland.
She got as far back as Canada, but she's stuck. So anyway, I don't have her information.
I
Sorry.
guess it's the Cunningham portion.
Yeah, she didn't bring the whole crew with her. Okay, so good enough for now? Okay, so the next one is coordinate management of recharge areas, protect groundwater resources. Okay, we had loss of riparian forests. We had infiltration changes. We had loss of critical habitats, post-burn rehab, groundwater infiltration and soil moisture, role of applied science, and we didn't X the infrastructure stuff.
There's no, those ones, soil impacts.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. I was thinking soil impacts, why not conversion of forest to brush?
okay,
And why not increasing stand densities in the T?
okay,
We're talking about groundwater and recharge areas.
okay.
Active biomass infrastructure, what is actually meant by that?
Facilities. So you have facilities that actually are able to operate?
Processing facilities.
Yeah, you know, the biomass.
Oh,
We hope to.
you like thinning the forest and so on?
Well, no, after you thin the forest, what do you do with everything?
So just as a word, I think this is an appropriate place to use the word resources. But if you're a water manager or a politician, what you would want that to say is coordinate management of recharge areas and protect groundwater storage. Their concept is that, you know, of use rather than the environment. And one of the things about what we do in the uplands is we've been learning for 40 years about resources. And that's not the way they think or talk.
That's
Now, the
a-
fact that they can't get at the storage
That's a good point.
is simply a problem to be solved later for them. But it gives them a goal and a reason to pay for things, is to increase groundwater storage. If you read all these articles recently, it's all about we're depleting our storage.
Right. Worldwide.
Worldwide. I think you should say something like that. Coordinate management of recharge areas and facilitate groundwater storage.
Not just protect, but
Protect this,
Make it stronger.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you know, we've been teaching ourselves to move away from the use ethic and protect the environment. I mean, the Forest Service used to be all about use, and now they very seldom say the word. But the people that we're now trying to simplify and work with in terms of water, water that's in the ground to them is a loss unless it's going to be used.
Okay.
So it would be coordinate management of recharge areas and facilitate groundwater storage.
So do we need to add to the check things because we did make those changes?
Well, yeah,
Yeah, like soil impacts, conversion of forest to brush, conifer encroachment, increased stand densities, at least those four.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And when it's framed that way, all of a sudden, all of this forest stuff,
Makes sense.
and timber stuff, that their instinct is, oh, we don't want to get involved in that.
Right.
All of a sudden, it becomes understandable.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of worried about the meeting on the 20th. Because the way it's lined up, it'll be forestry people talking to water people with no crosswalk.
Right.
And so the only thing we can do is under public comment, start linking things for them, but.
Well, we might want to make an effort to mention to the timber people that, you know, David Bissell is a wonderful human being, but he may not be the right spokesperson for this.
Okay, well, if we have
Comments
a
from the
region-wide
timber-
project, we have something to talk to those guys about.
Right.
Because we could talk about what it is it would look like on the ground and why it's important to them that we do it, right?
Now, the why is what we need to tell them.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Jay could talk about the Mary Creek or whatever.
Well, I'd be, there's no question that Jay could be trained up to do exactly what needs to be done.
That's why I looked at him earlier.
You know, I had a problem. Did you see any of the old boxing movies, right? I mean, it's like you gotta tell Jay which hand, you know, rap, not rap. And they're words that you've got to, I mean, just pick one of them. Let's say we pick the woman who runs Defenders of Wildlife. To her, the idea of using the chainsaw is I mean, for her organization, it's a 75-year fight. The idea that it might be good for not only water storage, in-stream flows, but songbirds is, I mean, you need to play the instruments that are going to be in front of you.
Yeah, no, I have that concern. So, okay, if we get to the point of having a regional project, then we have to talk about how we're gonna do all this. But, okay, so where we are right now, are we done with coordinate, manage, and research areas and protect, facilitate groundwater storage? And now we're gonna go on.
I'd like to add something.
Huh?
One more. We call it Upland groundwater storage. This groundwater storage is very watershed. We're talking about Upland.
Yeah, or meadows, I mean, they may not know we're in this region.
Well, and you know, we're carrying the burden. I mean, they can tell you all about groundwater storage on flat land
So
because they've been pumping the hell out of it for years. But the idea that you could store water above dams to replenish dams in a biologically sort of neutral way, hydrologically neutral way, is that's the new thing.
So you would support putting Upland groundwater
I would.
storage? Okay, anybody?
No, it's actually about baseball augmentation.
Well, right, but you said Upland groundwater storage, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I'm looking at the map showing the bulletin 118 basins, Michael, that we talked.
Right.
So it's everything outside of the basins is what we're talking
Right, and this map, I mean, whoever goes down there, take this map. I mean, and build whatever presentation you've got around this map. It's not only in the mountains, it's different. It's not only about the collection areas. Obviously, if you fill this up, it spills into Lake Oregon. Then, you know, been doing that ever since they built the lake. It's not spilling anymore, and so there's less flow. We propose to, but you gotta do the work in all of the areas that are outside the Bulletin 118 boundaries.
Okay.
Yeah, for the most part, except those basins were, I think, broadly drawn to be more like from ridge top to ridge top.
They don't care.
So it does make it.
Yeah, I mean, you're giving them way too much information. They start getting sophisticated.
Those are probably based on some of those early studies. The DWR did looking for dam sites.
The idea here is that if it's in Bulletin 118, it's absolutely true no matter what you say. Right? So just don't fight with Bulletin 118.
Okay, and the thing I'd like to point out is that Sierra Valley Basin is as big as Top, just to put it in perspective.
It holds as much water as Lake Top. And that's the kind of point you would want to make. And it's endlessly refillable.
Yeah.
If you do the right things in the uplands. And if you protect your recharge areas. And they know that much.
Okay,
They know about recharge areas in Los Angeles.
yes. Okay, so on to the next one, improved coordination of land use and water resources planning. We only marked
So
4.
should we illustrate that with pigs flying around? Just,
What are you talking
They're
about?
not ready for you, John.
they're not ready for you.
I'm ready for you. but
It'll happen.
They're not ready for you.
Improving the coordination between water resources.
We're not sending you.
and land use planning will happen when pigs fly.
Okay, so, given that that's how we all feel about it, do we want any more boxes on the floor that we asked?
We are going to question about the biomass on this, because when we develop parcels in the forest, they have to meet 4291 standards. We have to do modifications, therefore we have biomass issues. Just kind of plotting a little bit there.
So you would check the active biomass infrastructure in regional wood processing?
Yeah, if you're tying it to land use, I think there's a tie there,
Okay.
but it's debatable.
Well, if anything were to be cited.
Jonathan? I mean, you're working on.
Well, especially when you talk about
Quiet.
larger facilities, you know, we've had discussions in Yuba County about land use in similar situations where small biomass facilities are okay on TPZ zone lands, however, larger ones which would interfere with the use of TPZ lands for forests, you know, that's not a use that's compatible, so, yeah. It should be addressed.
Okay.
So everybody's, like, check those X's on the active
John, if
biomass,
you're-
wood processing?
Well, just to state the obvious, if you don't have, there's things you just can't do, period.
Okay.
I'd
It's
throw
getting
in,
critical mass.
yeah, I'd throw in the water and forest management one too, at the end there, since.
Okay,
I'm probably erring on the side of being more inclusive than exclusive,
think
but
so,
why
yes.
wouldn't you include fire liability in the role of applied science and data as well?
okay.
I mean, you're talking about policy and regulations and economic incentives.
So, just turning this sideways, you know, and looking at the source of these exits. Again, I'd like to point out that there is one mention of water
Okay,
on our evaluation.
okay, if we get a regional project, the
We're
first thing
talking
we're gonna
about-
make is,
We're talking about forests, machinery,
okay,
so if the people on the State Water Commission turn this thing that way, they put this in the file, it doesn't have anything to do with us.
Well, okay, Michael, just for the sake of argument,
Sure, please.
I think some of it is just the way, like you said, you sell it. So instead of soil impacts, you can say soil impacts to water quality and water yield.
Yes.
You can say loss of riparian forest as that riparian or aquatic
Right.
component to it. Conversion of forest to brush and effects to water yield.
Right.
Those kinds of things. I
Right.
think what you're getting at is you need to use the right rhetoric.
And I mean, I'm trying to channel George Lakoff, which is that it's all about the words you use.
Sure.
And so I mean, you just did it. It
So
wouldn't
what
take,
piece is still?
it wouldn't take 5 minutes
Yeah.
to add water in some fashion to almost every one of them.
Okay. Is that what the group wants us to try? Okay.
Take a shot at it.
The word yield is more important than quality.
And in all cases, down below Lake Orphan.
I mean, but you know,
Okay,
not in a way to change anything, it's just a link.
okay. Yeah, just where the X is still doesn't do the linkage. It
Right.
has to be in the words.
Right.
Okay. All right. Are we done with coordination of land use and water resources planning?
Cool.
We
have water.
We left blank conversion of forest to brush, we left blank conifer encroachment into meadows, and we left blank groundwater infiltration and soil moisture, and we left blank the densities. Are you sure this isn't an all the way across the line thing?
Yes. I mean, all of the things you just mentioned.
They
the-
integrate land and water.
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna make this an all across. Is that all right, you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
They do what is to link land use and water.
all right, so
Don't,
where are we now?
don't they want you to do that?
Yeah, which one? Which one is all the way across?
The land use and water resources, we just decided to make it more inclusive. Okay, now we're on to,
Maximize agricultural, environmental, and municipal water efficiency.
I think you need to check underwater for fire and forest management there.
So on the last one we just finished with, yes.
The new one, maximize agriculture, environmental, and municipal water use efficiency.
what are we checking? I'm sorry.
We checked none before.
Yeah,
Okay.
the whole row is blank, but I think that issue about water for fire and forest management is all about water use efficiency.
Okay,
So,
all right, so check the last box.
Along with the others we checked.
I didn't have the right page. Okay. All right, so we're gonna check the last box on that one. Okay, we done with that? Okay. Okay.
Now, these other issues were somebody else's issues. These were issues that the overall group came up with.
What, the objectives? Or what?
The maximize ag, environmental and municipal water use efficiency. Was that not, that language not developed elsewhere?
Oh, yeah, it was developed by taking our old 2005 plan and looking at some of the other adjoining plans, and then the regional water management group settled on that language.
Okay. So we've got nothing checked there?
Well, we didn't.
We just checked water for fire and forest management.
Okay, is that good enough?
I'm lost in terms of what's up there versus.
Well, I've got to go back to. Okay. All right, so what we decided to do under maximize agricultural, environmental, and municipal water use efficiency is checks the last box, which is water for fire and forest management. Okay, John?
Yeah, because didn't we feel like this was the least relative to our group?
Yeah,
I mean,
this is just trying to link all these work groups together and all the other issues in the California Water Plan and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so are we done with that, John?
I have one more question.
Uh-oh.
Is the role of applied science and data.
Yeah, that
That sounds
probably is.
really complex and something meaningful.
Yes.
The role of applied science and data.
Well, Burkhardt, that's what you're gonna do for us in the water balances study, so we're not gonna capture this item, okay? Unless you have other language you would like to suggest.
Maybe it's digested of what it's actually supposed to say. Well, just leave it in there.
I think he's right. I think it probably should be checked.
You check it in the, okay,
Absolutely.
Ag and municipal.
all right, okay, great, thank you.
But he's also seemingly objecting to the whole thing all being lumped together the way it's lumped together, aren't you?
Yeah, it's, doesn't make much sense to me.
It's like
Should it
walking
just say
up a-
science and data?
Hmm?
Should it just say science and data?
Science and data, yeah, but it also talks about policy and economic incentives.
I mean, this is why people want science and data for policy regulations and
Well, we
economics.
need it.
Yeah.
That statement's been there for 2 months, let's not change it.
Okay.
Burkhardt quit.
This is crazy.
Burkhardt just woke up. Don't get too agitated at this point. Okay, so effectively address climate change and mitigation for water resources management. We checked everything except the infrastructure pieces.
Good enough.
Okay, good enough for everybody?
Could
Okay.
you check infiltration and inflow changes?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
It's good that some of us are awake for some periods of time. and
Then they come back. Because my question to it is, since that's going to drive everything in California from now on,
Prohibited stuff.
I was trying to look at it from the point of view of, if it's not X, why is it there?
So X everything all the way across.
On the climate change.
Right.
Okay, so these are tools.
Yeah, because we really do have to make a better case of relating the existence of Collins Pines Mill
Right.
to
To climate change
to water and
adaptation.
all this other stuff.
Right.
Okay,
For others, not
For
our-
using government money.
all right,
I
so that's all the way across. Okay, and then on the next one, improve the efficiency and reliability of water supply and other related infrastructure. We only checked 3 of them. Conversion of forest to brush,
Science.
role of science, and water for fire and forest management.
So
Those are
there's-
things we thought were, yeah.
So there is no ecosystem reason for improving the efficiency and reliability of water supply and water-related infrastructure within our geographical boundaries.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying?
I don't know what we're
By-
saying.
Yeah, I
by
wanna
the
check
commission.
all the boxes.
Looks like it, yeah.
Right.
So what you're saying is we should exit across?
Well, yeah,
Should at least
I mean-
get, like loss of critical habitat.
Okay, so is this one of those ones where we go all the way across again?
I think so.
All right.
Pieces.
And I have to tell everybody that Mike and I got tired when we got to this point.
No,
No, but we're bringing in a
At least I did.
perspective here on how this will play out
right.
at a statewide level, and so you have to.
I thought that's why John called, is
Yeah.
to sort of vet
How they look at
how
what
they
we're
look
doing.
at it. I mean, I understand what I mean, you guys taught me all this stuff in the library, but they don't.
Okay, so then we were right on target, and we said enhance public awareness and understanding, we went all the way across the
Right.
line. And then economic challenges of agricultural producers. We just hit those, biomass, regional wood processing, fire liability, and water for fire and forest management. That was what we thought the hooks were to agricultural
And
producers.
the definition of agriculture was not just, raising hay, it was raising trees.
It's
When
USDA
it was brought
producers, this is like forests.
Tree farmers.
Tree
Yeah.
farmers, when it was brought up, it was inclusive of tree farming.
And there will be absolutely no one on the California Water Commission at the present time who understands.
Well, that's okay.
They
This-
don't see trees as a problem.
Yeah.
So what should we do with this particular one? Should we take it all the way across like the others?
I don't think so,
Yeah, I think,
Can you leave it as it is?
because what that would say in that context is, that economic challenges of agricultural producers, read Westlands, is going to override
what we wanna do here.
what you want, all of the ecosystem values.
Right.
Because that's what has happened in their world.
Okay, so leave it as is. All right, on to the last one. Work with counties, community groups to make sure staff, to send it up. Make sure staff capacity exists for actual administration and implementation of funding. We X'd everything. So, if that's okay?
Yeah.
So we'll leave it.
That's it.
Okay, we got through that, and thank you very much. So I'll, depending on how the rest of the day goes, we'll see if we can go back to the regional water management group, some tweaks on some of the overall language. Okay, so before we get to this, do we want to get into the projects? I don't know how we missed project development, somehow we got.
If we're gonna prioritize projects, we better get into them and start talking
Yeah,
about
so
what
let's-
kind of priorities we got.
Well, we have, so let's do projects. Because that'll influence kind of everything else that happens after that. So, as you know, we had 13 projects submitted. And the question before, they were, almost all of them were passed on by the Regional Water Management Group. One was withdrawn, the Fire Safe Council one, Mike, was withdrawn because it wasn't ready at this point. And so, is that the right way to characterize that?
No, Fire Safe Council didn't sign the MOU, that's all character, that's right.
Why is that? Are they gonna?
Actually, the way it was characterized by Leah is the group isn't a true group yet, but there's no determination or decision to submit anything.
But the Fire Safe Council did not sign the MOU.
That's true too.
Will the Fire Safe Council sign the MOU?
Perhaps it's the point that the group decides to talk about it, hasn't been a discussion on it.
Okay. So that was the only one that was withdrawn. So the projects that we have are the Collins Meadow project.
Could you kind of give us a sense of where we're at on the packet?
Okay, well, we're way back at the beginning of the packet, really. Somehow we got,
And there's,
Page 8 of 9 of the
So what the
summary.
packet contains
Thank you.
is a matrix of all the
all
projects.
the projects that were done.
And there might be a few stragglers out there.
But, and then on the left-hand side, it says ALS, so that's Ag Land Stewardship. Okay, so when you go down the big, the 80 project matrix, and then the next one is floodplains, meadows, and water bodies. That's the FMWs, and you keep on going. You have municipal services. They put a lot of projects in. How many did they put in? 29 or so?
We didn't get them all either.
Okay, so, and then the tribal group, it's under TAC. They put in 5 projects.
But there's a couple missing too, because we found out there was some computer problems.
Okay, well but anyway, what's on this sheet anyway? And then finally at the end, here's us, UF, Uplands and Forest. So,
And then the next sheet's the details.
okay, so here's our projects, here's our 13 projects. And that's why number 5's missing, that was the one that was withdrawn.
They're not up yet on the screen.
No, I know.
Do you wanna do that?
I don't know if they're, I don't think, see, they're not on this. Because most of the other groups didn't want to go into the detail we want to go into because they aren't thinking about a mega project, region-wide. So anyway, so here's what our projects, and we had 2 projects from Collins. So Jay, can you talk to us quick about those projects?
Yeah, the biggest problem is I didn't request enough money, I guess.
Oh, you can change that.
Yeah.
Should have had
This is a
Ryan.
concept.
No, if it's going to step 2, we're gonna, revisit all that, and you add as much detail as you want.
Okay,
Add more.
Yeah, add more.
number 1.
Yeah, unlimited amount of money here, so.
All right, it's all free money. Number 1, the actual conifer removal should be probably completed today, or actually the conifer severing will be removed. Removal will be completed in the next week or 2. So, I don't know, it's pretty self-explanatory there. I don't know what else you want me to talk about there.
Nothing except whether you're interested in moving it to step 2 and again.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, and then, all right, so, and then you'll have to draw it on that map up there on the table with one of those crayons.
Okay. And number 2, we're absolutely interested in moving to step 2 as well.
Okay, and so the deadline for that is August 3rd, and we have the step 2 proposals on the website, and I'm available to help in any way, okay?
Which of the universe of Rock Creeks is this?
Yeah, right.
This is the Rock Creek that is right near the Plumas-Lassen County line on Highway 36 and the 56.
Goes right up the side of the road. Right?
Yeah.
Good stretch.
So have you started to do your public tours or anything yet?
We have. In fact, there's another one going on today, right now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, coordinator didn't ask me about it. Guess I would have. So I chose this group over.
Oh, my, okay.
And actually, a bunch of the Forest Service, I think on the last, and I don't know if anyone from Plumas is.
My wife.
Oh,
Yeah, here today.
Good. Yeah.
So I'm still at a loss as to where this is. Highway
Oh, this
36.
one is on Highway 36, just west of Chester, about 4 or 5 miles. Just before you get to the Park 40.
Okay.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Have you heard anything back from folks?
I'm getting phone calls every day saying, hey, looks like there's a whole bunch of lodgepole on the ground there. Is that available for firewood cutting? But
Nothing really.
nothing really significant yet.
Okay. Okay. Is that it, Jay?
Yeah.
Okay, so be sure and draw your projects on the map, and
Okay.
if you need any help on step 2, let me know.
All right.
Okay. All right. Next is, oh yeah,
Flood control.
this is Wkrgrp's pilot study that, didn't the regional water management group said they didn't want flood control to do any of these projects?
I was not at the.
Okay, so what I heard loud and clear is we put 2 projects into flood control as placeholders. One is any further work that we wanted to do on the forest water balances study that's unfinished in this phase. And then the other one was this overall capacity building project for all the groups doing implementation of things in the feather. And both of those categories, they told the work groups to tell you that every project should have a capacity building element in your project. Should be a budget item for capacity building and infrastructure to actually implement these projects. So they kicked it back to the work groups project by project instead of an overarching proposal. And then on Burkhart's study project, if we have a mega project, maybe it fits in there, but otherwise they were saying it needs a sponsor.
So 10% on every project?
What, could you define capacity?
Well, it depends,
What are
each
they-
grantor has a different definition. but
Somebody's gotta work on the projects, right?
Yeah.
Somebody has to, so coordination is usually covered under just implementation. And then this administrative ability to go from project to project and to keep going as an organization. Take Bloom's Corporation as an
You
example.
know, I mean, that's
You
who
know,
it's the only one I know. That's the
okay,
only one
so
I'm here.
having worked there and been through all that nonprofit world stuff, you always need to have enough money in each project proposal to carry it into the next one, to help you develop, all you guys in the nonprofit world know this.
Cash
So-
flow staff. all the
And the problem with the RCDs and a lot of those other groups is they never did that. And so they're struggling and struggling and struggling and struggling, and they never have the capacity to even get the grants to even keep going. So that was the idea of the big implementation capacity grant that we put in that you'll see in that first matrix. So what the regional water manager group said was, you know, go ahead and build capacity. We don't want another layer of government doing this. We want each of these groups that know how to implement to build that in there so you can keep going. Is that what you heard?
I didn't.
He was
He
sick
didn't
that
go-
day.
He didn't go to me.
He was listening in and out of
And
103
He
people, so
heard
I
that
don't know
from
what he
you.
heard.
So this is
You
basically
know,
a line
this-
item for like program costs?
Right.
Yeah,
The project.
administrative,
Here's
Yeah,
the
you would-
reality. The capacity to write a grant is pretty limited within the region in almost all the groups.
and to get the permits and go through all this stuff. that-
So that's what came up as an objective. It was actually added by the ag people because they see there's this lack of capacity out there.
And they couldn't even get sponsoring agencies. You know, I mean, you have to have somebody that is gonna be around to keep grinding through all this permitting,
I don't think
monitoring.
I
that's,
recall these conversations, but go on.
No, I mean,
Jonathan.
I think what they're also talking about, whether they're saying it or not, is they're really tired of these one and done kinds of things where folks do a project and then they're saying, now we need money for the next project, whether it's the next grant or the capacity to actually go beyond the implementation of a single project. So we, for example, have a grant from rural development. We're working with 9 or 12 communities across the Sierra and into the Siskiyou area. We're helping them build their organizations. We're helping them build their structure to advance wood utilization projects such that when we're done, they can run with these things as opposed to a grant and it's done. And they're all sitting there waiting around for the next round. Everyone's saying, well, what are you going to do now? And saying, we're out of money. We're done. So it's a structural, organizational, and a funding kind of thing, and it's institutional. And how do you pull it together in ways that they can continue to operate? And the agencies don't really understand how to advance that work, but that's really what they're talking about more and more in terms of capacity building. Yeah.
So I'm sorry it's not any clearer than that. I mean, if you're in a for-profit organization, then, you know, that's buried into your profit work, but now we're getting into things like water and some of these other things where, you know, the profit isn't that clear, so that's why we're going into the public benefits sector for these, because they're California-wide, right? Well, then you get into this grant writing, you get into this whole other world, and permitting and monitoring and all that kind of, which is not what your organization's really built around. So that was the idea of getting some of these sponsoring organizations and getting them to the point where they can sustain these projects, so that you guys can do what you can do, but we can add these benefits in and make them bigger. Does that make sense?
So on this first one from the flood district, I noticed it was under Bob Peralt that it was submitted under. I'm looking at the actual.
Yeah, there was a bunch of roads.
This one's not a road. Pilot study and develop methods to measure, quantify, and affect.
This is
Yeah.
Burkhart's proposal.
And it went in under Bob.
Well, I don't know, it didn't really, it just went in under flood district. It's really-
But Bob is the flood district executive officer, right?
for operations. Randy and Bob are, so Burkhardt got the name wrong. Randy, they both do different parts of the flood district.
Well, this is, I mean, this is the part that from the state level is the most frustrating. Is we know you all like to do good work. We know you're bright. You're disorganized as a train. And so and if you had an organization, you'd kill it. Right? I mean, politically. So.
And this runs up to the politics of the time, Michael.
It does. I mean,
because right now, you know, countrywide, do more with less. The workforce is getting burned out. You see it in the news every day. Since the recession, we have serious capacity issues that are coming about it. And the political perspective is don't grow government.
Well,
but how do you manage to do all these things unless you have a tie-in entity to make it all work?
And
that's my issue.
And you're absolutely.
So I haven't finished arguing this point
Right.
with the flood district board.
Right.
I may lose, I probably will
Right.
lose, but that's the
Well, I'd
issue.
like to come to that argument because last week another, 150 million out of the feds. The Republicans are putting together a bill to throw incredible amounts of money for Republicans into this whole thing to make it move faster.
This whole California Headwaters partnership, that whole Cascade.
No, they don't even know what to call it. They just want to give it money, whatever it is.
It's fire danger.
Right. Danger.
Danger.
And the Democrats are no better. I mean, but the point is, the point is that we're really going to have to grow up at some point and take, to use the cattleman's phrase, the bull by the horns, and set up somebody who can provide the service of planning, grant writing, directing, fetching, and the people who are in charge at the regional, that's what they don't want to do.
Well, that's why we did the whole region-wide thing, and we got to kick back to the work group, so that's where we are. Well, I know, it's terrible when you've been around so long, everything sounds like a rerun, but, no, so, but anyway, so that's what these projects are embedded in, and if we go for a region-wide proposal, then those will all have to be pieces in there, I guess is the point.
Right.
Or in these individual processes, you have to build some extra money in there for doing this interface with this whole public benefits and all this other stuff. That's not what you do for a living. That was, I guess, the point of it. So on this one, Burkhardt, if we could find a sponsor, would you go ahead to step 2?
Sure.
Okay. And I don't know where you would draw on the map.
You know, one of the things that's going to happen is there is going to be a discussion with the flood district is going from the planning side. There is a subcommittee. I don't think they've talked much. And we're in the budget season, the county level. One of the things that's showing up is the flood district itself, because, and I don't understand where it's coming from Bob's side. I haven't seen the details of his budget. Is that from that side of the flood district, the engineering side, it's a loser for money. They don't have enough revenue.
Right.
Probably not even to pay the table lake water costs.
Right.
On the other side, the stuff I manage because of the grants, there is revenue.
Right.
There wasn't before, but there is now. Part of me is even afraid that you know, the accountant will go just look at it in terms of pure numbers and go, well, Bob needs 230. If there's 230 sitting there in admin,
right.
We'll just shift it.
Right.
And that won't be a pleasant meeting for me to be at.
There'll be a bloodbath in the hall.
And that the point being is, there is gonna be some movement, some discussion of what's gonna happen with all this.
We don't need more engineering, we need more planning. I mean,
I'm the planner, Michael, you know
I
that.
know.
And I do, it is my belief that the table A water costs have continued to go up. Although that's, I'm not directly involved in some of the negotiations there. The reality is that balloon payment that was sort of set up when they did the Safe Water Project and the cost of the project at the end, they're wrestling with right now. I got enough of understanding of
Okay,
that.
so stop,
But
that's
the
not
point
on this.
being is that, I don't want to see projects killed at this point because of that issue.
Right.
We
Okay,
should
so-
keep this moving.
Okay, so you're
You
gonna
get
go
my
ahead,
frustration.
all right. The next one is,
We haven't found a sponsor though.
we haven't yet, okay,
Are
but
we, which one are we still talking about, the canopy?
Burkhart's, how,
Four?
we're doing this, yeah,
Three.
canopy study. We're not gonna get everything done, he was proposing some other work.
And I propose to run it on the flood control district because that's how we did it last time.
Are you really only interested in canopy, or is it just density or stocking levels?
No, the whole works regarding the
Okay.
so we have the transportation. Intersection.
Okay, so Zeke,
Just density in general.
Paul, Zeke,
Mhm.
okay, what were you gonna say about your proposal?
$50,000.
It's not on here, it's your LiDAR proposal?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's more like a 10.
Okay, you wanna
Pretty
say
much what
anything
it
about it?
says, not
Besides
really.
it's self-explanatory?
Self-explanatory.
Are you gonna
It
move
tries
on to step two?
combine improving water with forest thinning.
Where is it?
It's under UF4, is that right?
No.
No, UF6.
Watershed urban interface.
Well, what about 4? What are we doing about 4?
4, we're looking, Burkhart's moving ahead.
That's 3.
The WUI program.
Louis Project Development.
Who submitted that?
Okay, UF4, no, I had the right number. This is by Zeke Lunder, Deer Creek Resources, right? UF4. This is the LiDAR project on the WUI.
It doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that. No.
I don't think that the project description, I think there's some discrepancies between your summary table and the project's description proposals.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, because you have 4, that's Zeke's LiDAR. If you go into the.
Oh, I see.
Into the project
project
proposals, but when
So
you
the
look
overall
at the,
term is different.
when you look at the summary table, it's showing it as,
So that's a Randy problem to get the numbering right.
sorry.
Across
Like that.
committees, so we know what the hell we're talking about.
Okay, so are we on UF4, Zeke Lunder?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, basically collecting LiDAR in the WUI to try and locate areas where you could combine fuel treatment with enhancing groundwater storage in areas like meadows and alluvial bottoms.
So the discussion at the Meadows is the Tahoe has been flown for LiDAR, and the Plumas is going to be flown, or looks like it is, no?
No, that's why I'm really interested in your proposal.
Because
Part of it,
We
Nancy
have,
Francine was
Nancy said
talking about
she was
that.
almost certain she would get one.
part of it was flown recently.
so,
There's,
okay, so here's where we're at with the LiDAR. We have 3 areas so far that have been flown. The Moonlight Antelope area, the Story area, and the Meadow Valley area. Okay, so those are sort of large-ish landscapes that have been flown. I'm really interested in this because I've been talking to our remote sensing lab, and what I think Nancy was saying is we're really interested in trying to get the forest flown, what we call wall-to-wall, everything. Public, private, we'd like it all if we can possibly get that. I see an opportunity to partner up here. Every year, the remote sensing lab has a little money that they set aside for LiDAR acquisition, and so I would hope that maybe I will talk to our contact there, Carlos Ramirez. In fact, I talked to him earlier this month about this issue, and there could be the possibility of some FY16 funds that we could at least match, because they wouldn't be able to cover all the ground, but maybe if we could piece this together, that we could get more bang
And I
for
think
the
for
buck.
this proposal, it's focusing on the WUI areas specifically.
Yeah, and I know that the forest, we're sort of tired of trying to piecemeal things
Right.
together. At some point, you just have to get the coverage. So if we can leverage each other's proposals with the various organizations, maybe we can cover more area.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
we'll have to sort that out before August 3rd.
okay, so you guys will
Paul,
keep talking,
Why
right?
don't you and Zeke, you guys can both use me as a contact. I may have to pass you on to people that are more in the know, but I at least can be your point of contact.
Great.
For that, just like the GIS stuff.
Cool.
Okay,
So the scope might broaden significantly on this particular
right,
project.
that's what it sounds
Yeah,
like.
so I have a question, like, if Sierra Pacific Industries wanted to be a part of this in terms of helping, kick in some dollars for the flight or something, how would that work? Or Soper Wheeler wanted to be a part of it and help.
I could see that's the money.
Okay, so, all right, so here's how this,
LiDAR everywhere.
It'd be great if we could all get together and work out, pots of money and see how we could
Perfect green
pool
project.
resources.
so who's gonna take the lead on that? Paul? Zeke?
Yeah.
And you'll lean on Zeke if he doesn't get a hold of everybody
Sure.
and make it move, and you guys will all CC me so I can keep it moving?
That'd be best if you coordinated it
Yeah.
and you could contact all the private folks and I'll
But,
be the
you know,
contact
CC me
for-
and I'll make sure that if it's a step 2, that everybody's coordinated and it gets to the right scale. Okay?
So you were at the meeting, and this does bring up a point. Did the committee, the broader committee, have any objections to funding Forest Service related projects or
None.
Forest Service projects?
None.
Which one are you talking
Well, the big committee, the,
Regional Water Management Group?
about?
No.
They didn't look, they really didn't look at these projects closely.
They just were like, did
You
they
had a
sign it?
sign, you had a sponsor that signed the annual meeting, you basically got.
In step 2, they might dig into it more, but even on the state funds, you have to have partners. Everybody has to be working together, everybody's gonna be interested, so I think that's how this group will deal with it.
If you want to move to phase 2, you have to work with it.
Okay, Ryan, you're next.
Oh, okay. I can speak to the one that I submitted with the fuel shop, Ryan Bauer. Basically, that's part of our Ketty project, doing some hand thinning around Ground Valley Reservoir and the community of Greenville. It's basically the missing puzzle pieces between our mechanical fin units. It's service type work. The way I designed this is I asked the leadership team, every year we can push some of our budget towards the service work. So you'll notice when I did this, I designed the proposal as a 50-50 match between the Forest Service and the RWM.
Okay,
And
so is that gonna move?
trying to sort of be sensitive to the issues that you guys were just talking about.
And so this will move on to step 2, you think?
Oh yeah, this is easy to bring.
Okay. And I'm curious about some of the other ones that I found on the CFRLA website that are already along. And if we get into those big mega projects, we're gonna have to populate our maps with things that are already going, so people can see how we're moving along. But anyway, that's another subject. The next one was the Plumas National Forest on the roads. And
Yeah, now that, I wasn't aware that that would be submitted under the Uplands group.
I know,
I thought that was, cause that's Joe Hoffman's proposal, and I know he's been more involved with the floodplain and water bodies group, and I thought that it would be submitted under that.
Well, that's one of the things when we talk about integrated proposals, I was gonna push and go, that's not just our project, that's a lot of projects, water quality from roads, that's kinda everybody.
And that was sort of bigger than I was, at least shooting for with the project that we proposed for fuels.
Yeah, so I guess my advice back to Joe is like, when we had that integration workshop on the 21st, so that's where we should really talk about the county submitted a big road project as well, and these roads go across all the boundaries, serve all these uses, and we have to have a way to deal with them.
Well, and some of the privates have cooperative agreements with Forest Service roads.
Yeah, so where you've got this road thing on, who's gonna fund that? I mean, if this was approved today, what would be your funding source?
Well, that's a big question in my mind.
Where everything is, there's no number.
Okay, well, I mean, the idea is it it's not the storage money,
Probably not.
but it might be the
Water quality.
the water
Water
quality money. And, I mean, I don't wanna be a broken record, but they don't care if it goes to the middle fork, Loud and Scenic River. They care if it goes to the middle fork or if the
Water supply.
water.
Yeah, when we get into step 2, we'll hone on that language more
So-
across the board.
So now I know this is part of that larger, middle fork ROA that we're proposing. So I think he basically cut some of the road work out for that. But I was looking at, well, I'm really interested in hearing about Ryan's regional thinning proposal because some of our work, I held off on some of the work that's a little bit further out here for this ranch because I wanted to make sure things were firmed up before we submitted a proposal.
So there was a chunk of money in Prop 50 to do this. And I was really glad to get Uplands County Public Works on board, because we've got private, we've got public, county public roads, we've got the forest roads, and I was glad to see these projects in there. They are very important, pretty no-brainers for supporting them, finding the funding source again, but there was a lot of money over, I can't remember, 1.2, 1.5, a lot of money out of Prop 50 grant, and it that went to the forest for road work, culverts, drainage ditches.
Right along creeks, moving the
Yeah.
biggest
Sediment
culverts away from
controls.
creeks.
And I think you'll find in Joe's proposal, he is targeting those priority watersheds.
Right.
Much like he did in the last round of.
Which helps him to get matching funds from Washington.
Well, and it might be more in this cascade, this other federal matching, so it's important to have it in here, but, I don't think we're looking at,
So
Storage money.
what everybody who's not the Forest Service needs is a Joe, somebody to do the integration, what the CRIM used to do. And so if we think in terms of someone who can bring in money from these different baskets.
Yeah.
Design a program, coordinate the program.
Well, and that's the idea of the SOPR mega proposal, but anyway, okay, so are we done with that for right now? Okay, all right, Ryan, this is the baby.
Well, and now, so we got the Super Mega proposal hanging out there. We could probably just slide right into it.
Yeah, wouldn't they fit very well with the SOPR?
The one that is a little bit different, this Wkrgrp run, it's all right around the pond and plug that's gonna get installed this year.
Right.
And so there's maybe some research opportunity there that might fit into what Wkrgrp's doing in terms of storage. There's already some monitoring being done, carbon emission stuff being done.
And that's
Right,
what's kind of
yeah.
exciting, because we've got Marion Creek's got the research piece on it, and to have one that's adjoining to a meadow with another
And I mean,
research.
we manage the bulk of that watershed. There's a little piece of Forest Service that we don't control.
So where is that?
It's in Lassen
It's
County.
up above, it's,
This is
Above Mount
right
Meadows.
here,
Okay.
and I mean, the only little piece we don't manage is right here.
Wow, okay.
It's a good chunk.
The 101 ranch?
Well, the 101 ranch is something, but
So are you gonna go on step 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
but
And,
these other two, I think, go in with running.
in the Big Mac.
This is really fun. It'll be really fun politically to see how the broader committee responds to this project in the long run, whether they approve it or not, since it's next to one of those awful pine.
But I have some editorial on that. Carbon
Please.
Valley, over on the Tahoe. Quentin has been taking Paul Rowan, Terry Swafford, people out there, and guess what? There aren't any issues with that project.
That pond and blood project.
That pond and plug project. And I will quote Sherry Thralt that said, you know, I'm not going to kill anything like that. I'm open. We'll have to look at it. So I don't think that's a deal killer. It certainly isn't for that project that was in the Meadows, discussed in the Meadows group. You heard that.
Yeah.
You know, I've had Terry Swafford say, you know, I've been up and looked at it, and I don't have any issues with it. So there we are.
So Paul and none of the users are claiming that the water rights have been stolen?
Not on that one.
No, there's a group that's complaining endlessly, and then there's a whole lot of people that aren't. Okay, so that's what you need to
Our
remember.
lessees, I mean, this is all grazing land. The land below it is irrigated grazing pasture, and they're all the same lessees. They couldn't be more excited about this project.
Okay, so
Because they're seeing it as, you know, better pasture land than the.
Life's enough to make you crazy.
Yeah, it is.
just
But
when you
it's
have a
just-
hard and fast
just-
idea.
Part of the reason for,
So Roger Bales has been looking for private landowners that would be willing to collaborate, and I'm sure a watershed such as what you're describing is a place that would be appealing to him. This relates to the Sweep project,
Yeah.
and it's got a whole cadre of other UC people. Would you entertain a phone call from him?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we would.
It's also in the snow zone, right? This is definitely in the snow zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where he's really strong.
What used to be the snow zone?
Well, yeah.
Okay, that's this, but we're not getting.
There's been some progress in the watershed towards kind of moving forward and fast as
And
that.
related to this, also the pond and flood project that's going into this season is also part of the project that I submitted that's looking at pond and plugs over a broader segment.
Yeah. I saw you.
That's the study. And
That's
Yeah.
the one that you saw my letter of intent. We've since submitted the full proposal now. When we submitted the letter of intent, we had not specifically identified places.
But
We've
this
now
is one of
identified
those.
6 places, and Goodrich is one of those.
So
is
is
that the one
this
you
you
talked
as,
to Sherry about?
is this you as a PI, Wkrgrp extension?
Right, with David Lyle.
But it's only focused on eDNA and low elevation, high resolution imagery using drone at this juncture.
Doesn't answer everything, but
Right, it's just
It's another piece, which is great.
not over yours.
Okay.
That I know of.
Fine.
Okay, all
I'll have
right,
to change my activity.
okay, number 8, that's a go-ahead. We're gonna try and add a research project on it. Step 2, and again, any help you need, due August 3rd.
I just got back from Colorado.
Okay, so, but you said you have 10? That's,
Well, I think 10 and 11, there isn't a US 10 and 11, I mean, they're kind of along the same lines. I looked at some watersheds that feed into Mountain Meadows Reservoir that we've wanted to treat for a long time, but it's just a pencil out. This is potentially an opportunity to do that, but it probably fits right into this mega project idea.
So there's 2 projects missing off of this, that's why
I think,
Zeke's isn't on there, and which was probably number 5.
no,
Yeah,
it's
a little
not
short,
number
I think
four.
The overall list.
It's 4, it's just, yeah, it's just not
It's just
listed as
a
the
project
project
summary.
component.
One of them, I think, was Uplands Fire Safe Council, one that was dropped, was missing.
Yeah,
I
the
was at the
number
meeting
5
where
is
they
gone,
said
and
yay
that kind of
and
screwed up
Do
all
we
of
have
them.
13 projects or not?
no.
No, we have
Okay.
12 with number 5, right?
Well, then, so where, how does 10 and 11 differ?
They're different owners.
Different owners.
They're different.
Different,
owners. We manage for multiple landowners, so I'd just separate them.
So that's why you separated
They're different locations.
And slightly different locations, yeah, and different watershed,
and
Above Mountain Meadows.
above Mountain.
if somebody, downstream was reviewing this project, the ones from, starting with Beatty projects and going through the Circle Wheeler projects, all of those sound great. Just by the way their language is structured, the keywords in them are evapotranspiration. Because that's a water term.
I just learned it from the last.
Well,
You
no,
did
I'm trying
really
to use
great
the right
with
rhetoric.
Right, and it's dynamite.
Magic words.
Meadow function's good. Increased water runoff to streams, that's great. That's all that fish and game on that, right? I mean, they and the Wildlife Conservation Board have been just,
That's the baby, isn't
it's just all been dumped all over. They don't know what to do. But your project does, it says so. Just for structure on the rest of it. Those are good.
Okay. Okay, so you're thinking of step 2, but as part of a mega step 2, right?
Potentially, yeah, that's what everybody wants to do.
Okay.
Lots of work for me
We'll
to do
just
it
see,
that
we're
way.
getting right to Soper. Okay, Soper.
Well, there's 2 here for Soper and actually.
Let me ask Ryan a question. How anxious are you to treat these? If you have a pre-project monitoring phase that tries to encompass, it's not on your
It
plan.
seems to me if that's out there and available, let's not. I mean, we can talk after, but yeah, I know the potential there.
It's on your
3-4
sustained
years.
yield, we gotta do it this year kind of.
No. These are well outside the system.
What did you use, Brian, for the budget?
I just took a per acre figure and it was kind of in the middle of the road, not high.
Assuming mechanical or?
Mechanical shipping, to the plant. Kind of what we've done.
This is
Some of our
getting
wire
to
safe council
Right.
ones, but I went on the high
projects
end
that you
just
submitted. It's pretty
because it was
interesting.
early.
No.
Some people are really happy with it.
And
No, I
did
don't
you
think
assume
we got
that
it.
those
I think there's a
fuel
lot of
schools
job.
left?
No, I
Burned
assumed,
We're still-
no, I assumed to take them to one, but
This
So
is
you
where we're
lost
sitting today, 80 projects.
Well, and from what I can tell, our friends
Yeah,
at
I mean,
Forest Service are still nibbling around the edges. In Plymouth Court, we're more aware of
There
the numbers that are in the other areas we're working. And there's some of these forests are really getting it together.
Yeah, no, I get that.
well,
Okay,
and we're setting the table to go into forest plan revision area.
Right, and it was, we talked before about inclusion
okay,
of all this
The
material.
all inclusive
Soper.
concept.
Soper is up.
There were 2 projects submitted by Soper, and I wasn't aware of the one that my boss Paul submitted was the Poplar Valley Meadow Restoration part. And I think, wasn't that supposed to be part of the Meadows group?
But it doesn't matter, Forest
Doesn't-
Meadows matter.
Okay.
We're hooked, we have ecosystem management, and as our proposal, and that's one of those integration things, when we sit down with them,
That's where it might shift, or it might come together.
or
with
they
something
might, we
else.
might have a bigger Forest Meadows project that covers more of them, that
Okay,
sort of
well, we've done work in the past, with the CREM, I think, on the Poplar Valley.
Right.
So this will be a continuation to stop basically the down cutting, right, of that channel through, historical, I don't know if it was wetland, but meadow, right?
Yeah, Paul talked to me about it over the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, just historically, that used to be, Poplar Valley used to be where the Middle Fork came out, away from the mountain. So it's functioned as a lot of stuff, including the main channel of Middle Fork. So
It changes.
it's been everything,
Yeah.
probably,
Yeah.
in between.
The other project was this, this regional thinning, mega
Okay,
project,
but
whatever you
wait,
wanna
I'm
call
so,
it.
are you gonna go ahead with step 2? you think,
Yeah.
about that? Okay,
Oh, yeah.
all right, good, and you know, the same rules apply,
So-
Tony, let's keep
So
them.
what you want out of this is, you want to know they're going to step 2.
Mhm.
Everybody should say that first.
Well, just, you know, I can ask you at some
That's
point.
part of it. The other
You know, if
part,
everybody else goes
No,
boo hiss, then probably you don't want them, but if everybody's like, yeah, you know, let's go.
It
the
would
other
be
part
nice.
is what's happening, which is an overall discussion of the projects and an overall awareness of the projects. And that'll even get more tied in when we do that. So that's part of it.
And it kind of
What we're
leads up
doing
to
is
the
part of what
SOFR
we
big
want.
one, and how, you know, because frankly, we went through this fire drill to get these projects in here, and SOFR, thank you very much, put in what we've always been talking about since day one, a project at the right pace and scale to treat this watershed.
Right.
And so, you want to go into that
Has
one?
everybody read it, the purpose of that project?
Okay, it's the
Yeah,
last
The
one.
purpose, what's the size?
Yeah.
It's that
Well,
part of the forested polygon over there, which is probably 2/3 of that.
well, and that's something I'm gonna circle back with Ryan on, because there's,
Which Ryan?
Yeah, which one?
well, all the
A, B,
Ryans.
A, B, or C?
Ryans, all Ryans. But, you know, there's, okay, one of the things is to get real on this mega pros, there's forest land, which is 72% of a watershed. And then there's forest land that's available for treatment, which is a smaller proportion of that. You know, and so we just threw some numbers out there. We thought about, you know, 1,000 square, you can read the numbers that we put on and what those would turn into as far as water recharge and yield. And, you know, whether that was enough to capture everybody's attention with the numbers that we had, and we thought it was. And was that feasible with what Wkrgrp had and the 2 data points that we talked about, which is you're reducing the canopy interception, that's where the recharge comes from. That doesn't talk about all the other factors and how it shows up and how much percent goes in runoff and all those other questions, which would have to be fleshed out more in a mega proposal. But this was to throw something against the wall about what pace and scale are we talking about? Where are we talking about at this pace and scale, and how are we gonna schedule
I
it?
mean, I sat down, you know, the idea in my head was maybe we can look at Soka Wheeler's lands, and I really quickly realized that would be, you know, not worth my time,
Right.
quite frankly. So, you know, the idea is just to look at it in a very broad scale and use it as a place mark, you know, for everybody to glam onto and figure this thing out. And my biggest fear was that I was gonna be stuck trying to lead this ship.
You don't have to be spectators.
But my biggest hope
I'll
is that
second that.
this would be, you know, really good
It was
opportunity.
Paul's fear too, by the way.
What's that?
It was Paul Violet's fear too.
Yeah,
Well, the wonderful thing that you folks did by stepping up is that this would have been the proposal of the grant in the old days. So to have somebody step up and lay it out, there's all kinds of ways to move it. The easiest way is to pick a number that is relatively defensible.
It's like 1,000 an acre or something like that.
Well, I mean,
You mean the base?
first let's step back to what they get. And so over a 40-year period, they're gonna get 10% increased flow. I mean, if you take all of the scientific stuff that's out there and it ranges from about 6 to about 19 to 20. So you pick a number in the middle and you start out by, if you do this on how many acres?
that's the average number yield that you're gonna
Right.
get from that. Short of us studying it on our own
Well, we're gonna study it to validate.
to validate the number.
But the idea that we're gonna study it if we study it first, at the level it needs to be studied. It takes too long and we never get, the scientists keep telling me, do something so we can measure it. Right? Don't, I mean, what they're doing is they're just, I mean, the last guy was at your FIT thing, Professor
John
Helms. Probably one of the leading folks in the state in regard to forestry. And it was, thank you for the Quincy Library Group because it was too small, but at least we were able to do something that we could measure. And so what this is a proposal to do something. And the benefit of it is, best guess, you're gonna get about 10% over a 40-year rotation.
And what we were thinking of doing, if you want to go on to this, watershed scale proposal, is we've been going through the literature, and Burkhardt will give you a little update on what he's found, but I've been going through the literature on forests and water. And there's ranges where a lot of people have coalesced around 8 to 10% of the recharge would be runoff, for example.
Right.
So we'll present it initially in ranges. Here's the canopy ranges. And so things will start out as ranges with the ideas, these individual step 2 proposals where there's an evaluative piece attached that will hone in on that.
And every scientific organization around, and I mean maybe around the world, if we start doing something on a scale that they can measure, they're going to be here, they're going to be funded,
But don't you have to break it down back to like a per acre of treated
Oh
area?
yeah, and then the cost per acre, there'll be ranges. So if you guys decide to go with this, then over the next month, we'll be sending you out, here's our range for cost per acre. Is this like, how should we qualify that? Here's our ranges for, interception. Here's our ranges for recharge versus runoff. This is how, we're gonna start honing in so that by August 3rd, we would have something that talks about the acres, the scheduling, the ranges of cost, the ranges of benefits. It would be much more fleshed out than this.
So I wonder if you guys, the forest industry, have given much thought to what the silviculture actually looks like for this type of forest. The work is designed for enhanced water. And then if you have, is it different than what you've been doing? How does it change business over the long term with what you've been doing, or does it, Tom?
I think it makes it, at least there's an opportunity to treat acres that we otherwise probably wouldn't because it's uneconomical for us to do so. The material's too small, the slopes are too steep, it's too costly for us. So in terms of silviculture, I don't think it would be anything different.
That assumes that you reach the canopy level by only focusing on those that otherwise are normally not commercial. Trying to get it at
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that either.
No, anyway, let's talk further about it, but that's been a question that's been going around in my mind of engaging with you guys.
And that's a question that you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Is, I'm gonna have, as I try to sell it to the environmental community,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have,
I
is this gonna be paved? To
What
increase the
is
runoff?
the consequence for habitat?
It's not going to be clear cut.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It's going to be a nice, beautiful, thin stand that produces more water.
And take pictures of the best stuff we've got. The library group finally fell back on, God, we're just gonna tell them that it's all gonna look like Collins owned it. And that worked. From then on, we just drug people out here in helicopters and airplanes and they marched around Collins's land and went, yep.
Right.
Well, I think that's something that I really struggled with. I really like this idea of a regional cleaning proposal, but most of our standards and guides are based around, at least on public land, retaining canopy cover for sensitive species.
Right.
So it's really hard for us to silviculturally design a treatment to maximize water yield.
It's not.
This
the
proposal,
word
of course, we
maximize
still have
doesn't
to deal with the forest
exist.
practice rules regardless of any of this other stuff.
Right.
So we can't go beyond what the forest practice rules allows us to do.
Right.
Well, there's,
But
They
this also-
can,
this also allows us to sort of, if we sort of put in on this, because I was looking at what Ryan number one put in, you know, that Greenville Creek Ketty. Spatially, I was thinking, oh yeah, that's right next to our Ketty Ridge project. And then when I was looking at Ryan number 1A's other proposal on
Give it number two.
Poplar Valley, you know, that it was like, oh yeah, that fits into our Eureka, or our Big Hill, Eureka Ridge, all
That's
those
right.
diverse hills.
That's
And
right.
so we're starting to spatially become connected and coordinated here. And I was also a little reticent, you know, the Forest Service has such a long-term planning horizon. I was telling you about our Middle Fork project. But I was reticent to submit anything because, you know, you guys can deliver a little bit sooner than we can. But if we can sort of coordinate both spatially and temporally, where maybe in the first part of the plan you guys are delivering, where we can, and see where we can work in the Forest Service's out year and current year projects to deliver where we can, then maybe we can come up with a spatially coordinated sort of regime where we would be able to treat enough acres to show that bang for a buck.
Well, one thing too, Michael, is, you know, I don't envision us treating every acre.
Right.
I think you have to get into these areas where spatially in the watershed it makes sense. When you look at those areas as areas you're going to treat, because we are still going to be in the business of timber production. I mean, let's be honest about that.
But the devil's in the details,
Yeah.
because
Right.
we have to,
Does this
But-
compromise?
the hardest part of this,
Well, I think you have to, you know, we'll be in the, I think we would all say we don't have a problem being in the business of timber production and producing more water and higher quality. Right. Everybody would disagree with that. So I think there may be a line where, yeah, we don't go all the way towards water production, but we do maybe back off slightly.
We don't know what that
So,
looks
which is
like.
what Michael's suggesting.
What-
that we-
But there's a better way, because reading body language of jurors has always been my forte. This man has the answer. Would you please, about maximizing?
As soon as you say maximizing water yield, it's DOA.
It's
Period.
right.
Because
balance.
having listened to the various conversations taking place, I can tell you, and Michael will say, he's already said it really, environmentalists will just say, no way, this is just another bait and switch game, and you're gonna go do what you wanna do, and you're gonna sell us this idea that we're gonna maximize water yield. The point is, you can do the work that you're doing and improve, you call it, right one, you called it out by saying, yeah, we'll have benefits, but it seems to me as soon as you go to a landscape scale, what you can start doing is different treatments, look at impacts of different treatments and outcomes, and that's another value of pulling this together in an integrated way so there are benefits to the properties that you're managing directly, but then when you go to scale, you're talking about watershed benefits overall. And that's when this whole thing starts rolling and the momentum moves and the funding comes. That's the opportunity that gets created when you do that. So I love where the conversation's going. As long as you don't use that maximize word, as long as you move out of LP modeling, which takes you, focused on particular variables. So when someone says, yeah, we want to see GTR 220 in some places, well, okay, you can approximate GTR 220. What are the wildlife habitat outcomes that environmentalists are particularly interested? The point is you can still do a lot of stuff, even on those, I think, somewhat more narrow, prescriptive kinds of ways of doing business. So huge opportunity, and I love when I saw, yeah, they're pulling together, great, this is exactly what's needed, but then there's this challenge of then how do we take this and talk about it as this cohesive whole has been talked about the different groups. And as I said to Courtney, I said, what you're seeing here are folks who've been at this for 25 plus years, working these ideas, pushing them, so here we are.
So, are we gonna go forward?
I'd love to. We gotta constantly do it. If we're gonna call it something different, or have a different sponsor, we ought to talk about that. But there's no doubt that we still have tons of work to do. and we've done tons of work already, so let's
And we
get,
haven't integrated it at all,
we haven't ever
which we
spent,
could do.
Right.
With what we have. I mean, my theory is, if there's anybody in the state of California that has, enough on-the-shelf stuff that could be assembled into a coherent pilot program, it's this area. And the problem in this area is we've still got some folks who may not want the result. They want to control the result before it happens. And I can't do that, and I don't think they can either. So we've got an internal political problem.
well, I'm real happy to hear the progress that's been made in dealing with our political representatives on this issue in the last month. It's hope for the
A lot
future.
of us have been working really hard.
Well, thank you all.
Really, because, we had reached loggerheads here on this, and,
No, we've reached cowboy heads.
sorry.
The waters are fine.
Good distinction.
Okay, you guys, so are we interested in doing Soper Mega? Region-wide proposal.
Yeah,
We'd be foolish not to.
Yeah.
Anybody not
For all
wanna
the
do
reasons.
this? Okay, if we wanna do this, then we need a project sponsor for at least the proposal development that has the right scale. Okay, we have RCDs, we have, fire state councils, they're not at the right scale to do something that politically, if we were gonna win it, would be the scale of the pit and the feather together, actually. Okay, we're just gonna work on the feather part, but that we would have to have an understanding that the headwaters of the other project is the pit, okay? And so there is the collaborative forest stewardship projects up there, but they don't cover, the Lassen in our watershed, so
Really,
that's
where?
some outreach.
Where?
Hat Creek Burning Garden.
But that's just a little part of a district. It's not mega.
It's part of the pit. I'm just saying there are nodes. I'm not saying that this has been done on the scale that we're talking about. When you see this piece of paper that you guys picked up, the proposal from the feds is this whole region, right? And our piece of it would be the Sacramento region, which is the pit and the feather. Okay, and so what I'm talking about as this project sponsor, we're still gonna focus on the SOPR project in our drainage, but we do wanna be aware of what's happening at the federal level and that these big proposals are coming down that match the state money. And it's undefined how they're gonna do it, it's undefined what they're trying to accomplish, it's our chance to lay that out for them. And so what I'm looking for is a project sponsor that can span this territory, understands the Washington DC thing, understands the pit. And I mean, the only two entities in this room that have that capacity are Cooperative Extension and the Sierra Institute. And so, let's talk about a sponsor for this proposal. Just the proposal development, not necessarily, in there we determine who's gonna run this thing and how does it run, but we don't know that yet.
Because of the research opportunities that exist with it, and because of the forestry stuff, I'd be interested. I can't do it, but I work with Ryan and the rest of you to develop it, to submit it. I mean, it has to mature beyond this second phase. It's a long-term thing.
Yeah.
And really, I guess you're proposing some acres, but there's much more to it than just a few thousand acres right off the top. This is
I would have to look really hard to find 2,000 acres on our ground.
Right, let me sort of ask a couple questions here. There's a California Headwaters Partnership, which is the U.S. Forest Service, California, and the Department of the Interior.
Correct.
Okay, so amongst them, have they had this discussion?
Jonathan, you would know better than the rest of us. What's the status of the conversation?
They have some interesting ideas moving forward, but they don't really know what they're doing. They don't know how to put put some of this on the ground. We've got a couple meetings next week that, this latest announcement is DOI, Department of Agriculture and Laird, where they came together and they said they know they need to do it. This links with the watershed improvement plan that SNFC's been advancing, and now with a number of other partners, and Jay can speak to that to some degree. There's a number of things moving, but in terms of how they're going to implement it, they don't have a clue.
Okay. What level of, you said Laird, so that's, I mean, that's a level that we can work with. What level does the U.S. Forest Service play in this partnership?
Huge. I mean, what level regional office?
I mean, is it?
The region is fully engaged in this one at the regional forester level.
Okay. And DOI is this Fish and Wildlife, or is this Interior itself?
Interior generally. Sally Jewell came out and with Vilsack, and it's at that level again. The challenge for them is the implementation level.
So what they need is
A pilot project.
a pilot project in coordination with the pilot project.
Yes.
So we're right back to where we thought we'd be before we shot ourselves.
So all we have to do is raise our hand and everybody looks and says, they're the ones.
Well, if
Throw
we
money
have
at
the most comprehensive approach of how you'd actually do this and how you roll it out over an 8-year period, I think we are the ones. I mean, and I don't, looking around, I mean, there's some little collaborative groups, Jonathan, there's other ones in the state, right? There's one, Calveras and.
There's the 3 CFLRs that are in operation right now that they're focusing a lot of attention on. Basically, they're going to throw money at the places that are going to make things happen.
Right.
That's the new
Right.
line. It isn't about spreading money across the landscape.
And it's not
in
about
terms of-
science.
In terms of the federal players, they're saying, we've got to get results. So they're looking at those 3 areas, which includes the Southern Sierra, and then the Central Sierra, and then Northern Sierra with Burning Hat Creek. But then they're also now the Chiefs Initiative projects, which are another set of efforts that includes the Highway 50 corridor. There's a climate project. Once again, they're going to where they have the collaboration and operation to try to make headway where they have agreement, folks working together.
So part of what we would have to demonstrate in our pilot project is that we have all that. Just because somebody didn't bless it doesn't mean we don't.
Yes and no. To launch the critical nature, as you already identified with the Feather River, they know that that's central. They know that the pit. So they didn't have, and they don't have right now in the Highway 50 corridor, they don't have a collaborative group even in existence. But it got identified because of a variety of factors I don't need to get into now. But it got identified, and we'll see if that actually works out. So because of the importance of this area, I don't think that group established is as critical.
And as you know, we're cultivating this local collaborative here in the Upper Feather through the Fire Safe Council too. So there is that moving forward. That's under the auspices of the Fire Safe Council. So that
But that would be folded into this, right?
Yeah, I mean,
if we're
Talk
talking
about
about
setting
it,
back.
it could be the overarching umbrella for it.
Finally, yeah, we had to figure it all out, yeah.
Because I would agree that
The
if any,
IRWM, that's an overarching.
Go ahead, Brad.
I would just agree that I think the agency and the agency folks are really going to want to see a collaborative group in terms of investing in a group. They're probably going to want to see that as part of the ultimate, yeah, sort of where they're going to put their priorities. So if the group can say, okay, we're working collaboratively, that's going to be a plus. If not, I think you're going to have to make your case even more. Sort of what you were saying, Jonathan. And we heard that at the last collaboration meeting with Sierra Nevada Conservancy as well. They said, look, if you have a collaborative group, that's great. That we're going to focus on on those areas and those groups that are trying to make some change.
So just so everybody knows, this collaborative effort was funded by Title II, contract with the Uplands National Forest to position this area for a CLFR that fills the void to some extent with the QLG ready to pass the baton on to diversify a group. So that's moving forward, and we were shooting towards December, but this Proposition 1 through the Sierra Nevada Conservancy accelerates the time frame such that that proposal is due September 1. So this entity is trying to fast track things to get itself together so that it's positioned to be able to apply for that.
You know, that's sort of the strength of having sort of an outside, I think, collaborative, is that then it doesn't just become an IRWM proposal, but there are other pots of money that an outside group could, you know, leverage a Sierra Nevada Conservancy proposal and an IRWM proposal and say, hey, look, we're trying to go after all these grant funds and we're going to try to leverage and match as much as we can and work with the agency. So then it just doesn't become an IRWM project, but it becomes a collaborative that's going after all sorts of funds. And so it's not, so you're not falling into that one and done that you were talking about earlier. If you have a group that can sort of leverage working all of these efforts together rather than being one of those funding sources.
So is the CFRLA, and are we ready to join up, or where are we?
This stage of the game, what's been done is honing in on the name of the entity, honing in on its vision, its mission, all those things that we do great. So met 3 different communities after the original 4 orientation gatherings. So this opportunity will force that at that point in time. We're looking for signatories to that. So then you ask the question, well, is that duplicative of what's going on here that they're hurting? Ryan has come to a couple of our meetings, if I remember correctly. Maybe one. Brian West, Representative Collins, has been to everyone.
No, I don't think I did.
Yeah, so anyway, so we've got these different time limits. We've got a August 3rd, then we've got a September 1, we've got a December 1. And so I guess what I'm saying is we're going to go ahead with the mega proposal. That is some of the things we have to work out, okay? And we realize that there's these different, and we want a collaborative group. The IRWM is sunsetting at the end of June next year. I mean, it's done. The plan is done. It's over.
And the IRWM, I don't think has ever been considered a management group.
No, it's not.
Management/implementation.
Right.
Right. No, it's
I mean,
you have to propose something in the future. So I'm like, that's, you know, this is just a planning process. So we're right to go into a collaborative framework.
So as I understand it from conversations, the groups that you mentioned in the Southern Sierra and the Central Sierra are now busy looking for people to implement the work that their group has already got money for. Right?
They did the CFRLA.
Aren't those the ones that Jim is doing now?
I don't know if the work that Jim is doing is being done under the auspices of a collaborative forest landscape restoration.
Well, I mean, that's what Foothill Conservancy is.
That's
I mean, they're in that collaborative group with the Forest Service and the
No.
state and.
No, for example, the work that's being done on the Stanislaus, there's no CLFR project there. That's the Calaveras district of the Stanislaus,
Right.
but not the rimfire area. That's a whole other area that's.
No, I mean, we're using the rimfire money on that.
Right.
But Stanislaus is trying to organize itself
Right.
as a collaborative group within the framework of the Forest Service. Activities.
But I mean, I think the point I wanted to make is that those groups don't see themselves doing the work.
Right. So, okay, so we need a sponsoring entity for the proposal for the next month. And so I hear that you're working on something in September that we should coordinate with you, but
Well, that's the Fire Safe Council that's got that is the entity sponsoring that effort. But then that's Plumas Corporation is the fiscal sponsor for that. So the question is it too late to become a fiscal or a signatory?
No, I don't think
Sign
so.
on.
So if the Fire State Council were to become a signatory, then this project could still be submitted under that. The office of the Fire
Except that it has to include the Lassen, it has to include Butte, it has to include these areas that are this watershed that are outside
If
the
you
fire
have
safe
mul-
councils.
If you have multiple signatories.
You know, what I'm saying is, you know, that's why I was pushing back on co-op, because when you get to the scale of the watershed, you know, for your individual projects, yeah, these are all these entities, but when you're talking about the whole year, if your territory doesn't extend to the parts of the watershed that might be included that are outside the territory, where are we?
Yeah, the cooperative extension isn't implemented.
Okay, so, all right, so I'm kind of
So
stuck
we're
with,
back to the,
So,
all right, so I'm thinking that for the purposes of the proposal development
I'm
only,
August.
not the overstructure, how it's all gonna work. What about CRS2 being the sponsoring entity to develop the step 2 proposal? While we work through how all these, that doesn't mean I do the work, so don't panic, but we still need a signatory
So let me
sponsor.
just say, if we were to take it on, there's no take it on for a month here.
Right.
Yeah, a month or two. And that's not to say we lead the charge, we do whatever, we can partner with folks to
This
develop it.
leaves out, one of the things we have to work through in the next month is who is the ultimate implementing entity and what's the name of this thing, how does it work? But that's part of the proposal development.
so I got a question. If things have improved in terms of the, I mean, I
Politics?
sort of, I don't think I'm disclosing, public, anyway, I'm gonna do it. I didn't want to sign Wkrgrp up
To get blasted.
to get blasted.
Right.
Right, I mean, we're working fine. If we never do a thing in this county again, we're gonna be more successful than we were.
Correct.
Now, actually, less successful because we don't have John, but if we can get John back, part-time, we would be more successful, I mean, because we can work anywhere now.
Right.
So, but, I mean, that map has been the dream.
Okay,
Of
so I'm saying, yeah,
You and,
no, I know, we've been at this for a long time, so I'm saying, okay, we have a step here. I would like to see Plumas Corp sign. I can't protect you from the Regional Water Management Group, I don't know what they're gonna do. I know we're gonna do a step 2 proposal, and we need a sponsoring entity, the signatory now, and in that we'll develop the implementation. Yes,
Well, my question again is, can we have two sponsors?
sure you
Sure.
can, yeah.
Because you take the Plumas County Fire Safe Council, you take the Alaska County Fire Safe Council, you've got, what, 3/4 of the
You
area
do.
now.
You need Sierra.
And you get Sierra, I mean,
So-
you could potentially do this with Fire Safe.
We could, you know, and
and
that's what we have to work through, and then we have to get the schedule
And
and
how
the
do
implementation.
how do you implement, and how do you convince the Water Brotherhood and the state and everybody else that it's not just a logger front?
And that's the whole.
And that's
I
why,
mean,
yeah.
so, I mean,
So at this point, we need to get to step 2 on this thing.
we just need, that's why I was thinking for,
And what I'm hearing, Jonathan, is you're willing to take that on, step 2?
and we work through it, yeah, go ahead.
We work
I just
together.
I have a question for Jonathan, maybe for the whole group, because I'm not familiar with Jonathan's group per se, so could you just maybe explain to us?
I think most folks, no, and again, let me just say, we don't need to take this on, that's for sure. We're really full, but at the same time, if this helps move this to just the next phase, that's the agreement. It's not taking it any further than that at this point, and it's only in partnership with others to do that. So the Sierra Institute has been in place for over 20 years. We've been in Plymouth County, but we work locally, we work regionally, and we work nationally. We've advanced some water forest proposals. We've not been funded to do water forest work other than some of the stuff in the Almanor Basin. We focus on policy and implementation, but our real area of focus has been along the lines of social and institutional dimensions, natural resource management. So in that sense, from an institutional standpoint, this is a multi-institutional effort to be sure. And it makes sense to participate in at least some capacity. But we do a lot of community assessment, we do a lot of work on both state and federal policy these days, as well as implementing local programs, educational programs around forests and watersheds. And for 10 years now, we've been coordinating the Almanac Watershed Group and a lot of the planning and work in that basin.
But
So
you're
it's just
also
ongoing.
working with the Forest Service on some of these collaborative projects, right?
We have a project that we're funded, we call it the SCALE project, the Sierra Cascade All Land Enhancement. And we're funded to work with the collaboratives throughout the state, both in helping them define how they're moving forward on a landscape level. And in fact, the landscape level work is now of increasing importance with what we're doing, looking at how we help the agencies move to this large landscape level. Multi-jurisdictional land management is a challenge for everybody. And they usually get hung up pretty quickly on negotiating that and working with privates as well.
So how many staff do you carry?
If you count our interns right now, we're probably about 10.
Okay, and where are you located?
Taylorsville.
That's one thing that I'm a little struggling with. I realize that this step 2 is a really good opportunity. But I wouldn't try to force something together in a month, just to make the opportunity. I think that we could all agree that this regional idea, the thinning idea, is good, but I wouldn't want to rush it in.
Well,
in
the
a
step
month.
2 bar is pretty low.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
So it does sound like there are some very discrete and specific identifiable projects that should probably go forward. But in terms of, I think that's, Mike, what your vision was in a collaborative group, is to build the collaborative before these opportunities came around, rather than trying to scurry at the last minute in a month, trying to pull together some big project that maybe hasn't been tangibly identified yet. That would be my
1.7 million acres needing work.
Yes.
That's been identified.
So how long is it gonna push back on?
where when I recognize that many of you guys have been talking about this for years, but when I hear you say, well, I think we could squeeze out 2,000 acres, but it sounds like you still have some penciling out to do. So maybe if there was a step 2, it should be tempered in reality of what that step 2 could feasibly be. Whether it's just us getting together and interacting and figuring out what 2,000 acres that is,
Well,
and what the Forest Service contribution would
It
be.
seems
and what
like there's an
Baden
opportunity
Collins
to
are
phase
interested
this project.
in.
That's what I was
Thank
thinking.
you. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at.
Because if on one hand you're talking about a 10-year project, which is more the Sierra Cascade, these federal initiatives that are starting to come down, or the storage bond money, you are talking about phasing, right? And so step 2 is basically talking at some of the initial phases while you're laying out the fact that this is really a 10-year proposal. And the first couple years are in more detail, and they look like this, but the overarching goals and the metrics and some of the basic stuff would be laid out to some level. When you look at the step 2 proposal application, it's easy. It's not, so that's not the bar. The bar is when we get to the water storage bond. The bar is when this money starts coming out. That's the big bar. So this is just to force us.
Sure,
to
so
keep
I'm
moving.
not saying don't move forward,
Right,
but
I'm
I'm
just-
saying exactly what Ryan said, is, and do it at an appropriate scale, a realistic scale, appropriate scale. And certainly if some of these folks like Collins and Beatty have specific projects that you've identified and are ready to go forward with, keep going forward with those. Don't roll it up into a bigger concept proposal.
No, I'm not
maybe in
saying,
that
you-
type
I'm
of-
saying.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree.
Me too. I may be less than respectful.
I look forward to
You used the word phasing, and I thought that tempered your comment a little bit, but then when you started saying, well, let's do this and this and this, and, then maybe you roll, no, you present the framework that you then roll up. Do you need to produce all the system impacts and outcomes in year one? Absolutely not, but that's part of the project where one devises the technical science team, which overviews and looks at the different projects that are put on the landscape so that there are clear outcomes that can be developed for something like this.
Sure, I wouldn't
So
disagree
in
with
terms
that.
of selling the idea, in terms of advancing the idea, if it doesn't do something, if it's this and this and this, that's no different from where we are.
Sure. I wouldn't disagree with any of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's why in terms of where there is this effort and you see the mapped landscape and folks are saying, we've got to move faster, we've got to have outcomes, and oh yeah, now we got to produce water, we got to look at the impacts of that. That's why saying, here's the boundary of the area, pit, feather, however we end up drawing that boundary, then we start identifying how the work on the ground contributes to the outcomes that folks can really measure. Now, there again, it's really hard to do it, but it can be done. The science is coming around to the point where if it's integrated, that's where they look at the landscape and say, that's what we need. That's exactly what we need, and we will help support that kind of project.
Sure.
That's why it's important to go big as opposed to a few of these, and the phasing is linked to a
The
whole
umbrella.
outcome.
Oh yeah. Totally agree. Forgive me. Phasing didn't mean like don't go big, don't try to wrap it all up in a tiny bow, but trying to go out with so many thousand an acre and those types of promises. I think you guys just need to be realistic.
Okay, that's
It's not
good.
going to happen.
That's appropriate.
Mike?
Yeah.
For 25 years, I've watched the Forest Service sabotage the Sierra with their constant desire to not lose control. And here in this thing, I'm so tired of listening to the regional forester tell me that they need to be doing 500,000 acres a year in order to stay up with the problem, and talking about the growth of the problem and watching the collapse of the ecosystems. And they're still doing Band-Aids. They're saying enhancing forest resilience to reduce the risk of high severity wildfire and allow a more natural fire regime. The Forest Service plans to reduce forest fuels on 20,000 acres per year in the 3 CFLRP projects.
Might as well not even.
Well, I mean, we're on a 2,000-year rotation with the problem. So
But we're making progress.
the concept that we're going to downgrade from that is my problem with this whole thing. The money is not going to be there if I guess the easy way to look at it is we've got a huge hole in the California water system. If we're going to put 3 little tiny pieces of canvas that don't cover the hole, we're wasting money and time. So it's not just that I'm old and that I'm very sorry John Shermell died, because he was a visionary in this regard. But I'm watching the need for scientific certainty, the need for scale and politics kill California's environment. The salmon will be gone next year from California if this year is as bad as it looks, because we've got them trapped in a little area between Shasta Dam and the Highway 44 bridge in the middle of Redding. And that's it. That's all that's left of you know, and that's just indicative of what's happening all over California. And so, if we don't do the mega project, let's not fool ourselves. We are wasting everybody's time and frittering away this money.
Well, I'm all for it, so,
But you didn't say anything about what that mega project. I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire here, Mike. I totally agree with what you're saying, but let's talk about what that
Sure.
proposal should look like.
Okay.
You know, appropriate.
The proposal
month,
due
we've got
August
a month.
1st.
We've got a
Well,
scale.
the
And we've
proposal
got
due
who's
August
going to.
Here's the area.
Let the devil's in the details.
I mean, you know, as far as expanding into the pit,
we don't have to, we're just saying,
that sometime the United States Bureau of, the Department of Interior needs to be involved, and their problems are on the pit.
correct.
California's problems are here. We didn't select this area because it's us. We selected it because it's everybody. Okay, so what does this area have going for it?
The largest river in the Sierra Nevada.
Okay, well, but it also has the idea that we know what the tool is to begin to arrest the problem. Right now, we're creating ice age forests as we know the temperature is going up. And the way we're creating them is inactivity. Right? I mean, isn't that what growth is doing? Is making the forest more dense. And we've got to make them less dense. And in order to make them less dense, we first got to get back to where we're taking growth, right? Otherwise, we're not doing anything.
Yeah, that's the one backward.
That's a pretty good
Going
measure.
backwards otherwise.
It's a pretty
Okay,
good measure.
there's the measurement. Okay, so the guy who signed on there, Mr. Stewart, says that would, Stewart, no, excuse me, I'm too many board supervisors back. More. Says on the Forest Service land alone, 500,000 acres a year in the Sierra. Here, we've already looked at what it would take to do the first cycle in the library group pace and scale. Right, it's 50,000 acres on this land base per year. Okay, and whatever happens on private land is addition.
You're saying that would get you to zero growth
I'm telling it that it gets us
on Forest Service?
right.
Okay.
Right. I mean, and I can't get to the real problem until we get to the growth problem.
Well, a huge wildfire would do the same thing.
Oh, sure. I mean, and not, you know, and I've got lots of friends who think
Let's not go there.
that's the way you ought to do it, is just
Burn it down.
torch it. You know, the blackback woodpecker would be prolific.
And brush, and then you get.
There'd be no
water.
songbirds, there'd be no, but what the hell?
Okay, you guys,
So,
I have direction to move forward on something big, and I will be in touch with you as it develops.
So
Well, before you go, I like
who's
the
responsible
idea,
for this on us?
Ryan
For the
once
next month?
suggested fire safe councils in both the Lassen and that's an opportunity to collaborate that with
And
Mike.
Butte.
And to some extent Butte, yeah.
So, devil's advocate, you're not planning on talking to the county council in Butte County who runs our water program, or you're not interested in talking to the ag interests or the environmental interests? It's just gonna be, because it's easier to stamp it, it's just gonna be fire safe council?
I'm just saying an entity that would push the effort forward. Who are you thinking?
A collaborative.
Yeah.
You can deal with
Let's
it
move in this collaborative entity, whatever it is. Right now, it's the Upper Feather River Stewardship Collaborative is what.
Feather River Stewardship Coalition or Collaborative, yeah.
Okay, I mean, that sounds.
That's the entity. At the moment is.
It's a fire safe council effort.
It
though.
is?
The fire safe council is making the collaborative, or the effort to develop a collaborative group. It's not supposed to be exclusive, it's supposed to be inclusive. So my expectation, at least as the RAC manager, would be whoever wants to go is welcome, and they've been having meetings for since January, February. And it'd be great to see more of these faces at those meetings.
Right, acknowledging we're doubling up and we don't need more meetings, but that's.
For Feather, what's the name of it?
For Feather River Stewardship Collaborative, that's not determined for exactly this point, it's moving towards that. There's an online vote that's being shared among those who have participated.
But some name like that.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Some name like that.
Getting close.
Okay, who is next on the queue?
Okay, I have a dissenting opinion on this thing. I think we should just be very nice to Paul and Ryan and say, why don't we have SOPA resubmit for phase 2 and say all the groups that they're going to be involved in order to set up this broader collaborative. But for the sake of ease, to have them do it, and Leo would work with you guys to do it, and we'd include all the suspects that we've mentioned here, including Sierra Institute, including Plumas Corporation, for possibilities for the implementation phase, which will be worked out as part of the overall project.
Yeah, to me, what you're wanting to submit at this phase is a process to develop whatever this will be.
And honestly, I have not even sat down and reviewed what I need to do for step 2. So, a little bit like a fish out of water there. I don't know what it's going to take exactly.
So I get the feeling Jonathan has looked at it in terms of being able to.
Well, I'd be willing to take a stab at it, but I need help.
Jonathan?
Yeah,
It's whatever this group wants to do, really.
I'd like to see it mature to step 2, and I'm hearing that maybe there's some collaboration in the room. I'm kind of pointing at Jonathan because
No,
I knew going into the room that he was willing to take it on to step 2 only. And I don't want to lose that opportunity to develop this further. So there's where I'm standing, if I can stand.
So then it'd be a joint venture between SOPA and
SOPA and the Fire Safety
Well, wait a
Collaborative.
second, I'm a little disturbed by that. That suggests to me that you've outreached him, but you didn't talk to the Fire Safe Council or any others.
You want to know what my opinion on the Fire Safe Council not joining in? We won't go there today, so let's stop. So
I'm happy to.
I'm looking for a result here, guys.
So we're just gonna do a proposal. I am hoping we will
Just to get it to
continue this
step 2.
conversation and we come up with a group over the next
So are
month.
we saying to continue this in the step 2 without naming right now naming a sponsor or going that route?
Right now, you're the sponsor, and I know from talking to Paul that he didn't think you guys could take it on totally, but he wanted to get.
I know we can't.
Right.
So I have to have a sponsor who has signed the MOU to do this next step. That's where I'm
the issue.
stuck.
All right,
Who are your
sponsors?
sponsors?
Right here. He said to do it.
Well, you haven't signed.
That's what I'm saying, I acknowledge that.
You know,
Fire
and
Safe
that's
Council's
where I'm
doing other
stuck.
initiatives, and we stopped at our capacity at that point.
Right, so I'm
So,
saying that
that's fine.
we just need a sponsor to help me work
Right.
with all of you to get to the next
We're
step and
talking
we will
about
figure it out.
collaborative to get to step 2. That's what we're talking about.
Well, here's an idea, shoot holes in it, but first of all, Ryan, anything you need from the Forest Service side, let me know. I can do that point of contact, and we can help develop that if you need to. The Forest Service is already, with a RAC grant, participating in this collaborative with the Fire Safety Council. So, we're of course going to collaborate with anybody who wants to. This just further pushes where we think we need to be with vegetation management. I cannot make any commitments on whether or not the Forest Service can take on the proposal or not. I would have to talk to the leadership. So that is an opportunity, but again, within the month, I think that needs to be tempered realistically in terms of scale.
SOPA wants to submit, we're willing to work with SOPA to develop that under, you guys are signatories and want to push it. Again, I'm not looking for it necessarily to be under our banner. I want to make sure if there's something that gets to phase 2.
The most important thing is that we get it
Absolutely.
beyond
That's
phase 2
my issue.
to
Get it to
continue
phase 2.
it to develop.
Are you a signatory?
I
So
second
is
that
SOPA.
motion.
and so is Collins,
So
so
Anyone
is the
who's on this
forest.
list,
I mean, we have a lot of signatories in the room, it's just how is this finally gonna develop?
And I
Maybe
think,
that
in fairness, the
becomes,
Fire Safe Council didn't need to be submitting projects, we have plenty, so we don't need to be a signatory for not submitting a project.
But you
That
can
was
be
the-
involved in this
We
collaborative.
can, but and if people decide that they'd rather go to the Fire Safe Council, we can quickly become a signatory.
Okay, good, all right, so we're gonna
That
leave
works
that
too.
part open, all right? As part of the next month. to
But
figure
at
out.
least it's gonna be, Sierra Institute, Socaville,
Moving,
working with the,
So we're and working with the members to get it to space too.
In regard to. phase
okay,
two.
thank you, you guys, okay, do
we
you
need
wanna
to start
take,
circulating the work product
Right.
to basically anyone.
yeah, it's on this team,
Everybody is,
yeah, everyone that signed up today is gonna get this work in progress, okay? Okay, are we done, can we take a break where Burkhard loads up? And then we have to do this climate change questions, and then you guys get out of here. Thank you, though.
I did the climate change question there, now that was.
Are these, I was looking at that list as you were saying,